Chapter 433. Oh, I'm not sure. He's just someone I know, but we're not on good terms. Xiao Jin thought of his rival in his memory. He's just like Joanna. He looks down on normal humans and thinks he's a god. Song Yanqing nodded. Is he a spiritualist or an array master? Xiao Jin replied, an array master. Where is he now? Xiao Jin shook his head. I don't know. Strictly speaking, he's my enemy. He's one of the targets that I have to get rid of. Is that so? Song Yanqing replied softly, I'll help you. As long as it was something that she wanted to do, as long as it was something that he could do, he would help Xiao Jin no matter what. Okay. She didn't reject him. She only said, there's no need to rush. Song Yanqing had gotten rid of Joanna, and he had killed 6 array masters in one go. It should be 7. The Hurley family wouldn't let this go. They would come to the capital very soon. He just didn't know how things would progress then. For Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing, this wasn't too important. One didn't care at all. The other was that since he chose to make a move, he had the confidence to deal with it. Moreover, he hid it very well. No one would know that he was a spiritualist. According to Joanna, his fate had been changed. It was probably impossible for him to become a spiritualist. However, he didn't expect Xiao Jin to be so strong that he was forced to awaken as a spiritualist. Xiao Jin thought of the 6 array masters who died and felt a little regretful. 7 spirit seeds, it was enough for a few backlashes. Song Yanqing was a little amused. Should I have told you to come over? Xiao Jin said, it's okay. Since spirit seeds exist, there's no lack of them. Song Yanqing thought for a while and asked, are you the only one who can get other people's spirit seeds? Xiao Jin shook his head. Not really. It depends on the situation. I suspect that the spirit group also has a method of seizing spirit seeds, but it's probably different from mine. As for you, if you have this idea, it might not be impossible. Song Yanqing nodded. It wasn't that he didn't have the thought of seizing the spirit seed when he was dealing with those people, but it didn't seem to be that easy. He did not succeed. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. Besides, apart from Xiao Jin, the spirit seed that he had obtained did not seem to have any other use. Xiao Jin didn't say that obtaining other people's spirit seeds could increase one's strength. If that was the case, then spiritual readers would be in danger. He took a sip of tea when his phone rang. He glanced at it and picked it up. He spoke in English. His tone was elegant and calm, as if he was just talking to someone about an ordinary matter. However, Song Yanqing was on the phone with someone from the Hurley family. It was normal for the people from the Hurley family to call Song Yanqing. Xiao Anna and the others had a cooperative relationship with the Song family. Now that Xiao Anna was gone, they would definitely call Song Yanqing to ask about it. After all, they all knew that Xiao Anna had come to look for Song Yanqing several times. Song Yanqing's answer was watertight. There was no evidence to prove that he had anything to do with Joanna's death. Naturally, the Hurley family wouldn't suspect him because a sickly person whose fate had been swapped would not arouse suspicion. After hanging up, Song Yanqing said to Xiao Jin, I'll be very busy for a while. It seems that we can only meet again when we go to Su Xiu's house. Chapter 434. It's okay, just do what you need to do. Xiao Jin understood why he was so busy. And it was only for a few days. Okay. Xiao Anna had just died. Although Song Yanqing wasn't a direct suspect, it wasn't as easy as he made it sound. At least there were still many things that needed to be dealt with. Even if it wasn't from the spirit group's point of view, the death of a member of the He or early family in Huaxia was also a difficult thing to explain. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing were sent home after dinner. He didn't expect Yao to call him that night. She sounded a little anxious. Qiao Jin, something happened. Do you have time now? Qiao Jin asked, did the psychic transform into a demon? Yes. Yao sighed. The problem is quite serious. It happened in the school. We've evacuated the students with the excuse of a toxic gas leak, but it's a big problem. This demonized psychic is different from the ones we've met before. It's very difficult to deal with. Not only did we send a team over, another team is also on the way. If you have time, you can come over and see what's going on. Compared to the spirit group, who had been loyal for many years, Yao wasn't as loyal. This was because they joined the spirit group to protect the safety of ordinary people and maintain the stability of humans and psychics. She was more willing to believe Qiao Jin, who told her everything. At least if Qiao Jin wanted to deal with them, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Qiao Jin, I'll go over now. What's the situation over there? The demonized psychic she was talking about was Shang Yishan, who they met at the cinema. She had already stopped it once, but she didn't expect that she couldn't stop it a second time. Of course, if a person could demonize, stopping it once wouldn't be enough. Qiao Jin set off immediately. Tonight, they were all busy and not at home, so no one stopped Qiao Jin from going out. Naturally, he didn't need to find an excuse to go dancing. On the way, Yao briefly reported Shang Yishan's situation to her. Tonight, Shang Yishan's university called the police. Their school was only a vocational college, and the students who studied here were all mixed up. Tonight, a terrible thing suddenly happened. Several students said that there was a ghost, and one of them was forced to jump off the building. The teacher who made the call also saw it with his own eyes. They realized that this was definitely not a simple scare. Before they arrived at the scene, they had already evacuated the students in a well-trained manner to avoid causing more panic. Through the school's surveillance, they finally concluded that the problem was Shang Yishan. Everyone in Shang Yishan's building had run away. She was the only one who didn't move. There was no trace of the ghost in the surveillance video, but the human eye could see it clearly. The teacher who called the police almost fainted from fright. Her shrill screams could be heard over the phone. When Yao and the others took action, they also quickly sent a copy of Shang Yishan's information to Qiao Jin, so that Qiao Jin could have a more comprehensive understanding of the situation. Earlier at the cinema, she had already attracted the attention of the spirit group. They had already investigated Shang Yishan, so it wasn't that they didn't know anything about her. They just didn't expect this to happen so suddenly. From the information, Shang Yishan didn't have any demonization points. Therefore, her demonization made Yao and the others a little confused. Moreover, her ability was so strong that even Yao and the others felt that it was troublesome. Chapter 435. Shang Yishan was 19 years old and was a student at Heavenly Dong Vocational College. Compared to others, Shang Yishan was introverted, silent, and did not like to talk. Therefore, she was not popular in school. According to the information that Yao and the others had found, Shang Yishan's personality was like this because of her family. Her parents had divorced a long time ago. She followed her father and had a stepmother. However, there were no signs that she had been abused. In fact, she was living a good life. This was not superficial information. When the spirit group investigated something, they would send people to verify it. Since they felt that there was no problem, then there was most likely nothing hidden about Shang Yishan. The only difference was that in school, Shang Yishan was ostracized by her roommates because of her personality. It was just ostracization. Although school violence existed, it had never happened to Shang Yishan. Up until now, he had not heard any students or teachers say that Shang Yishan had been abused. However, it was true that she was ostracized. Qiao Jin saw Shang Yishan and a few other students who went to the cinema with her last time. One of them was Shang Yishan's roommate, Ning Jiaojiao. According to the information, she did like to bully Shang Yishan and take advantage of her. However, it was not that bad. However, this time, she was the one who was forced to jump off a building. It was because of her that the matter blew up. Qiao Jin quickly finished reading the information. The vocational college was in the suburbs and was very far from the center of the capital. It would take an hour to get there by subway. When they arrived at the scene, most of the students had already been evacuated. The school had even issued a holiday order. The students who could not return home were gathered in another dormitory building, which was protected by Yu Xie and the others. He Yao and Lan Xiaoni went to the belly to face Shang Yishan. Her ability was also proven. Ghosts became real. Ghosts in movies could appear in reality. They could not be seen by surveillance cameras and were controlled by Shang Yishan. They had the characteristics of ghosts in movies. They were invisible, flashing, and very lethal. The timing of the ghost's appearance was also very troublesome. The people in Shang Yishan's dormitory gathered to watch a horror movie. In the end, for some reason, the ghost appeared. It was an old movie, and it was a common female ghost in red. Lan Xiaoni's space ability could only keep the ghost in Shang Yishan's dormitory for now. It couldn't move anywhere else for the time being. After He Yao called the headquarters for help, she called Qiao Jin without hesitation. She felt that there was something wrong with Shang Yishan's ability. The ghost that she had summoned was simply too powerful. Combined with the incident at the cinema, He Yao and the others felt that Shang Yishan should be able to summon the ghost she saw. There must be a time limit and conditions. Otherwise, with Shang Yishan's ability alone, many spiritual readers would not be her match. When Qiao Jin arrived, he immediately saw the gloomy atmosphere of the school. As if it was controlled by an invisible net, the entire school exuded a lifeless aura. She blinked and paid the driver. Then, she sighed softly. What a coincidence. There was indeed a reason why Shang Yishan was so powerful. At this time, the school gate was guarded by the police who were summoned at the same time and did not know the truth. They didn't know what was going on inside, but at least they had to make sure that the people outside couldn't break in. Chapter 436. Qiao Jin didn't force her way in. Something had just happened in the school, so the control wasn't that comprehensive. She used her sensing ability to find a small door and went in. When she went in, she considerately closed the door to prevent others from sneaking in. The lights in the whole school hadn't been turned off yet. It looked bright, but in fact, it was as quiet as a dead school. Many students who didn't know the situation were now gathered in another dormitory, falling into endless panic. The reason for the leakage of poisonous gas was still very scary, but they didn't know why they weren't allowed to leave. In fact, it was too late for them to leave now. Shang Yishan's ability covered the whole school. If she wanted, the ghost could appear anywhere. However, she hadn't fully grasped it yet. If she fully grasped the ability, it wouldn't be just the people in the school who would die. When Qiao Jin found He Yao, she was holding Lan Xiaoni's hand and guarding under a dormitory building. There was no one around, and their clothes fluttered slightly in the wind. When He Yao turned around and saw Qiao Jin, her face was a little pale. "You're here." She saw Shang Yishan move just now. In order to prevent her from coming out, she used her ability to stop Shang Yishan, but she couldn't get close to Shang Yishan's ghost. She could only do it from a distance, which consumed a lot of energy. Lan Xiaoni couldn't hold on much longer either. Shang Yishan's ability was even more terrifying than He Yao had imagined. Qiao Jin sighed. It's quite rare to meet such a person. It's simply the right time for her. Yao was a little confused. What do you mean? Qiao Jin was wearing a beige one-piece casual outfit this time, but she looked like an immortal. Especially in the dark night, she looked like she was going to become an immortal at any time. The tranquil moonlight shone on her face. She looked around and muttered to herself, "This school used to be a mass grave. I've told you about array masters before. Array masters need array points to set up arrays. Some array points are innate. This school was a natural death aura array point. If someone demonizes here, and it's a corresponding ability related to death, it will be multiplied. Such a person, once awakened or demonized, will become a high-level existence. Of course, you can't deal with it. Her ability can still grow. If she is given enough time to master her power, she will be able to walk out of here and slaughter anyone she wants in less than a day." Nowadays, many schools were built on top of mass graves. The reason was that the students' yang qi could suppress it. These statements made some sense, but it was also a double-edged sword. Shang Yishan's existence actually made such a place more convenient. Yao was shocked. "So we can't deal with her now?" Qiao Jin shook his head. "You definitely won't be able to deal with it. No matter how many of you come, you'll all die. You can't deal with just the ghost's ability alone. In the future, when her ability grows, more ghosts will appear." Yao, she was flabbergasted. In Shang Yishan's information, where on earth did she demonize? I don't think her hatred is that strong. If she hates Ning Jiao and the others, she should be more suitable to awaken as a spiritual psychic. Qiao Jin looked quietly at the small window in the dormitory. At this time, Shang Yishan was poking her head out and looking at her silently. Qiao Jin said, "Born evil." Chapter 437. She narrowed her eyes at Shang Yishan and said to Yao, "I'll go up and meet her." Yao was a bit worried. "Then be careful." Qiao Jin said, "I'll be fine. I just want to see if there's a chance." Yao was a bit confused. "What chance?" "In the past, I thought that a demonized person wouldn't be able to regain their rationality, but Duan Nianra's matter made me see something different." She had clearly accepted her ability in demonized, but she was still able to regain her rationality at the crucial moment. Shang Yishan's demonization is a bit strange. I want to see if there's a way to figure it out. If there's no way, I'll just eliminate her and not let her leave here. As she spoke, she walked into the dormitory. Yao looked at Qiao Jin in a daze for a moment. Could a demonized spiritualist regain their rationality? She was a bit confused. She had never seen such a thing in all these years. Their mission was to subdue demonized spiritualists and hand them over to headquarters. Lan Xiaoni watched as Qiao Jin walked in and whispered, "Godmother, the thing inside is too powerful. Isn't Big Sister Qiao afraid?" Yao held Lan Xiaoni's hand. "It's fine. Your Big Sister Qiao knows what she's doing. Since she dares to go in, it means she's not afraid." Qiao Jin walked into the dormitory. Because he had fled in a hurry, the dormitory was bright. The lights were not extinguished, but there was a strange aura circulating in the room. Occasionally, the lights would flicker as if they were leaking electricity. It was quiet, and even the sound of breathing couldn't be heard. It was too terrifying. Shang Yishan lived on the 3rd floor. She didn't encounter any obstruction as she walked up the stairs. Shang Yishan hadn't lost her rationality, so she knew that she couldn't deal with Qiao Jin. Perhaps she was just curious. When Qiao Jin reached the 3rd floor, he saw a scene that would make an ordinary person's soul scatter. A pale female ghost in red clothes revealed only her ankles. Her black hair reached her waist, and she stood at the end of the corridor on the third floor. Originally, her back was facing him, but when Xiao Jin came up, she turned around, revealing a face with greenish-gray eyes. It wasn't necessarily terrifying, but knowing that she was a ghost made her even more terrifying. It looked at Xiao Jin quietly and did not move. Xiao Jin didn't care about it. He walked straight to a room in the middle of the corridor on the right side of the stairs. It was room 306, Shang Yishan's room. Shang Yishan was sitting on the balcony of the dormitory. She was wearing a nice satin cartoon bear cotton pajamas and was combing her long hair with a red comb in her hand. In fact, they were not much different from the ghosts outside. However, from the way she dressed, she looked like a girl who had been raised in a greenhouse. She didn't have much of a sad aura. The fact that she could demonize was something that no one could understand. When Xiao Jin stood at the door, Shang Yishan turned her face and looked at Xiao Jin. She whispered, "You're so beautiful." Xiao Jin smiled. "Thank you." She walked into the dormitory and looked around. She sensed some trivial things about Shang Yishan and her roommates from the living atmosphere. Xiao Jin said, "Ning Jiaojiao usually just likes to take advantage of you. It's understandable that you're resentful. I'm curious about your usual thoughts if you have the intention to kill her because of this." Shang Yishan stopped combing her hair. "Just take advantage of her. Why would someone who likes to take advantage of others live in this world?" Xiao Jin said, "There are many people in this world, and they live in this world for a reason." Chapter 438. Shang Yishan chuckled softly. That smile seemed a little sinister at this time. "I wanted to kill her that day at the cinema. You shouldn't have saved her. Now you'll only harm more people." Xiao Jin smiled and said, "Since I'm here, I won't give you a chance to do it. You don't have to push the blame to me. You're the one who wanted to kill her. I stopped you at that time to give you a chance. Now it seems that you don't cherish it. What do you know?" Shang Yishan sat up abruptly and looked at Xiao Jin. "They usually gather together to talk bad about me, bully me, and take advantage of me. Just like my stepmother. My father clearly said that he wouldn't have any other children with me. Why does my brother still exist? Those who deceive me deserve to die. They all deserve to die." Along with this sentence, the air became stagnant, as if some kind of aura had exploded. The red-clothed female ghost screamed and appeared behind Xiao Jin in a flash. Her black nails suddenly grew sharply, as if she was going to pinch Xiao Jin's fragile neck. However, Xiao Jin just waved his hand gently, and she froze, unable to move half a step. Xiao Jin approached Shang Yishan. "So this is what you think in your heart? Anyone who deceived you deserves to die, right? You even want to kill your own parents." Shang Yishan's thoughts had been born from the darkness for a long time. Ning Jiaojiao and the people at school were only catalysts. The real reason was probably born in Shang Yishan's family. I didn't." At this time, Shang Yishan's eyes flashed, and she quibbled a little. However, her denial proved that Xiao Jin guessed correctly. Xiao Jin smiled and said, "Let me see what your parents did to you." She stretched out a white hand, and Shang Yishan subconsciously avoided it. That hand didn't touch Shang Yishan, but it seemed that there was an invisible force controlling Shang Yishan, making her unable to move. The red dots in Xiao Jin's eyes flickered. He saw everything that happened to Shang Yishan from her body. However, her parents, on the other hand, had divorced peacefully. It was human nature for them to be unable to continue living with their relationship. Shang Yishan had been brought up well since she was young. It was also her own choice to choose to follow her father. Her father had promised her that he wouldn't have another child, but after meeting Shang Yishan's stepmother, he couldn't help but give birth to her younger brother. Her stepmother actually treated her well, but Shang Yishan was completely against it. The darkness in her heart had reached its peak ever since her younger brother was born. She felt that her younger brother had taken everything away from her. There was not a moment when she did not want to kill her younger brother. She even viewed the people around her with hostility. She once tried to push her stepmother down the stairs, but she was too young at the time and did not succeed. Ning Jiaojiao's appearance was just a catalyst. At school, Shang Yishan's personality was dark and antisocial. Ning Jiaojiao thought that Shang Yishan was easy to bully, but she didn't expect that she would become a stepping stone on Shang Yishan's demonization path. Now that she was demonized, not only did she want to kill the people at school, but she also wanted to kill a lot of people, including the teachers at school who made her feel uncomfortable with just one sentence. Qiao Jin had met countless demonized people. Most of them, at least in the early stages, targeted the people they wanted to kill. It was the first time he saw someone like Shang Yishan who killed people indiscriminately. If Qiao Jin had come a little later, her plan might have succeeded. Chapter 439. Qiao Jin retracted his hand and looked at her. You're already hopeless. If Duan Nianru was the ultimate good, then Shang Yishan was the ultimate evil. It was just that this kind of evil did not have the time to show itself and was discovered too quickly. Shang Yishan shrieked, "What right do you have to say that about me? What do you want to do?" Her ability did not work on Qiao Jin, so she could not attack Qiao Jin. This made her feel that something was wrong. Such a person should be dealt with quickly. Shang Yishan had just been demonized. Even if she took her spirit seed now, she might do it again. At that time, her destructive power would increase exponentially. But, Qiao Jin felt that there was a turning point in Shang Yishan's life, and it seemed to be preventing her from doing anything. Was it karma? Qiao Jin frowned and looked at Shang Yishan in confusion. This was the disadvantage of having a hard fate. Shang Yishan's fate was hard, and Qiao Jin wasn't a spiritualist, so he couldn't see her future. There was no doubt that she was evil. Since she wasn't allowed to do anything, Qiao Jin directly took Shang Yishan's spirit seed. Shang Yishan shrieked. She knew that something was wrong. As the spirit seed disappeared, the red-clothed female ghost also disappeared. Shang Yishan was covered in sweat, and she collapsed on the ground. She looked at Qiao Jin with hatred. Even at this time, she didn't fear Qiao Jin. She only felt endless hatred. She knew that she had lost her strength. Qiao Jin had taken her strength. Qiao Jin looked at her indifferently and pinched his chin. What's wrong with you? I'll find out sooner or later. She looked at Shang Yishan and smiled. We'll meet again sooner or later. This sooner or later made Shang Yishan feel a chill in her heart. When Qiao Jin went downstairs, another team of spiritualists had already arrived. Following them was a team that was going to deal with the aftermath of this matter. Professional cleanup. Another team leader asked He Yao directly, is he still up there? He Yao wanted to say that Qiao Jin had gone up, but she suddenly heard an ethereal female voice saying, don't reveal me. The voice seemed to come from a faraway place. He Yao immediately realized that Qiao Jin must have a way to hide their tracks. She immediately said, yes, we've been here all this time. We haven't left. At the same time, he pinched Lan Xiaoni's palm. Lan Xiaoni was smart. Seeing that He Yao didn't say anything, she naturally wouldn't say anything about Qiao Jin. The captain frowned and said, is it very troublesome? He Yao nodded. It's extremely troublesome. We can't deal with it at all. She did not reveal the information provided by Qiao Jin. She predicted that these people would definitely notice something, and by then, they would not be the ones to deal with them. As expected, the team leader who came to ask for help didn't dare to bring his team up directly. In less than 10 minutes, an order came from the top, saying that the matter would be transferred to another team, and that Hiyao and her team could go back and rest. Other than Hiyao, even Yuxia and the others didn't understand why the top would give such an order. Didn't transferring to another team also mean that they needed help? Why didn't they let them help? However, they didn't know how terrifying a high-level spiritualist was and the existence of a formation master. The top probably also noticed the problem with Shang Yishan, but they didn't know that it had been solved. They directly let another team take over. Chapter 440. By the time Qiao Jin returned home, it was already late at night. This time, she bumped into her big brother, Mu Qizhi, who had just returned from abroad. When Mu Qizhi saw Qiao Jin return home in the middle of the night, his deep frown showed how dissatisfied he was. He asked, "Where did you go?" Qiao Jin, disco. Mu Qizhi, the scene was very suffocating. Mu Qizhi was a little annoyed. "Girls, don't go out so late at night. I don't mind if you want to play, but you can't do this too often." Qiao Jin, I know, Qizhi. You're right. I'm a little sleepy now. Can I go up and sleep? Seeing the girl's calm expression, Mu Qizhi didn't know what to say. He could only sigh deeply. Go to sleep. Qiao Jin nodded and went upstairs. Mu Qizhi, who knew that Mu Qizhi was coming back, came downstairs on time. When Mu Qizhi saw him, he asked, "Qiao Jin often doesn't come home at night. Don't you care?" Mu Jinming was stunned for a moment. Not often. She goes out occasionally. She's already an adult. Do I have to control her? She's more reassuring than Qi Lian. Mu Qizhi shook his head. I don't think so. Girls are more likely to get into trouble than boys. Mu Jinming, don't curse her. Mu Qizhi, the next day, Hiyao told Qiao Jin about the follow-up on WeChat. Shang Yishan was probably taken away by the higher-ups of the spirit group. She didn't know what happened next, so she couldn't provide more information. Qiao Jin only replied to Hiyao with one sentence. Jin Jinyo, I've already taken her spirit seed, but I have a feeling that she will bring a lot of trouble to the spirit group in the future. Hiyao, what kind of trouble? Jin Jinyo, it's just a feeling. Hiyao, this sentence was like a flag that was planted in Hiyao's heart. She was afraid that something would really happen. However, it seemed like Qiao Jin didn't know either, and Hiyao was at her wit's end. Shang Yishan's matter had come to an end, but it didn't mean that other things had stopped. The next day, when Qiao Jin came back because of Mu Qizhi, Qiao Jin heard an unexpected news at the dinner table. Mu Qizhi was going on a blind date. The blind date was not an accident. Mu Qizhi had not had a girlfriend for so long, so it was natural for his family to be anxious. They just wanted him to go on a blind date. Mu Qizhi did not refuse. The other party was also a rich young lady who had just returned from studying abroad. She was very compatible with Mu Qizhi in all aspects. It was someone who had found Mu Xiangshan and mentioned it to him. Mu Xiangshan didn't insist on anything else, so Mu Qizhi didn't refuse. The mention of a blind date opened up a topic at the dinner table. Big brother is going on blind dates. I don't think he needs to go on blind dates at all. Muzilian clicked his tongue and expressed his opinion. Blind dates, I really can't imagine it. Qiao Fei expected better from him. Do you think everyone is like you? He couldn't do anything, was the #1 disco dancer, and had never stopped having girlfriends. In this family, there was no need to worry about anyone except Muzilian not being able to find a wife in the future. Muzilian felt particularly innocent. I'm just following the trend of feelings. What's wrong with being like me? Isn't it good to bravely pursue love like me? Qiao Fei, scumbag. Muzillion. You've been watching too many dramas. How am I a scumbag? Chapter 441. Xiao Fei, this relationship stopped for a day and the next one picked up. If you're not a scumbag, then what are you? Muzillion, your son is handsome, confident, and popular. I don't lack girls chasing after me. She has already confessed to me. If I don't reject her, should I still be immersed in the pain of my previous relationship? Do you want me to learn from the other 3 single dogs in our family? In this family, he was the only one who attracted girls. Look at Big Brother, Second Brother, and then look at Xiao Jin. None of them even dated. Muzillion felt that this society was too perverted. As soon as he finished speaking, he was attacked by eyes from all directions. Muzillion shut his mouth resentfully. Mu Jinming continued to talk about the girl. I've heard about the girl. She's good. If you're interested, we won't interfere. It's up to you to choose. These words were naturally directed at Mu Qizhi. Mu Qizhi only nodded. Mu Xiangshan probably felt that the room wasn't too lively. At this time, he looked at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin, don't just eat. Tell your big brother's fortune. How's this relationship? Everyone, Grandpa, are you crazy? However, Xiao Jin wiped his mouth and said seriously, Qiji's marriage isn't urgent. It will appear later. She had seen the marriage lines of the 3 members of the Mu family. Mu Qizhi and Muzichu were the kind of people who would be stable for life after meeting one girl. Muzillion, on the other hand, had some twists and turns. He would probably attract some rotten girls. He might even suffer some retribution later. His marriage line would be stable later. Is this the only one that won't work? Mu Xiangshan raised his eyebrows and sighed. Then it seems that there's no hope. Everyone else, it was one thing for Xiao Jin to be out of tune, but why was Grandpa starting to be out of tune too? At this time, Mu Qizhi was still acting like an elder brother. Because he was not at home often, he could not integrate into the current environment of the Mu family. At this time, he expressed his opinion, Grandpa, don't be superstitious. You can't believe everything that Jean learned from the internet. The information on the internet is very heterogeneous. It's not good to receive wrong information. Mu Xiangshan laughed heartily. Xiao Jin, you only showed it to others. Why didn't you look at your own marriage line? Besides, you're already 20 years old. Do you have anyone you like? Xiao Fei was a little embarrassed. Dad, why are you bringing this up? Jean is still young. Mu Xiangshan, almost 20. When I was 20, Jinming was already born. Mu Jinming coughed dryly. Dad, what era was that? Can we compare with you in the past? Muzillion was a little suspicious. Would Xiao Jin like someone? Isn't she close to Brother Yanqing now? Muzichu and Mu Qizhi immediately raised their heads. The whole family looked at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin said seriously, Song Yanqing and I are friends. Dating is too redundant for me. I don't want to. If it's possible, I probably won't get married for the rest of my life. This sentence was like a clap of thunder, causing a huge commotion in the Mu family. Even Mu Qizhi and Muzichu looked at Xiao Jin in disbelief. Xiao Fei was even more flabbergasted. He was so anxious that he was about to cry. Why don't you want to get married? What happened to you? It was understandable if he didn't want to date now. But he didn't want to get married. What happened to him? Muzillion was also very shocked. After hanging out with Brother Yanqing every day, he still didn't want to get married. Was Brother Yanqing not human, or was Xiao Jin not human? I beg for a monthly vote. Chapter 442. This was a question that Muzillion could never figure out. Xiao Jin's idea of not wanting to get married was quite frightening. After all, for a normal person to not want to get married at the age of 20, how much of a shock must she have been through? Mu Xiangshan was a little shocked. You really don't want to get married? Could it be that Lord Song rejected you? Everyone's imaginations were off the charts. Xiao Jin sighed softly. Amidst everyone's shock, Mu Qiji slowly said, "It's fine if you don't want to get married. In this day and age, a girl can also live well on her own." Qiao Fei immediately retorted, "How can that be? I don't care if you get married late or have a child late, but how can a person not get married? Think about it, when you're old, there won't be anyone by your bedside. How miserable would that be?" Muzillion suddenly said, "If you're rich, you'll have a nanny." Qiao Fei was speechless. She suddenly wanted to beat this troublesome son of hers out with a broom. Mu Jinming had no choice but to persuade Qiao Fei. "You're thinking too much. Children these days have different ideas. It's just that the right person hasn't appeared yet. When the person she likes appears, she'll naturally get married. You don't have to be so anxious. She's only 20 years old. It's not like she can't afford to wait another 10 years. Xiao Jin felt that he seemed to have said something inappropriate. He pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. Jinming is right. Mu Jinming was speechless. Qiao Fei opened his mouth and seemed to want to say something, but Mu Xiangshan suddenly stood up. What day and age are we living in? Why are you still so old-fashioned? If she doesn't want to get married, then don't get married. Can't you afford to raise her? Qiao Fei was speechless. After being lectured by his family, Qiao Fei finally gave up on the idea of educating Xiao Jin. Musichu was the only one who did not express his opinion throughout the entire process. Perhaps to him, this matter had nothing to do with him. When Qiao Fei and Mu Jinming returned to the room, Qiao Fei was still worried. Why doesn't this child want to get married? Did something happen that we don't know about? The drug incident could only be said to be an accident. At that time, it did not involve any emotional factors. Why don't you even want to get married? Mu Jinming touched her shoulder and said helplessly, I think you're worrying too much. I think she has her own ideas. Maybe she just doesn't want to get married. It's not strange to have such thoughts in this era. We can't control the children's affairs. How can that be? Qiao Fei looked worried. It's bad enough that the child has a mother. If we don't get married, I'll die before her. Won't she be alone in the world? She thought about it for a long time, but Mu Jinming sighed. I understand what you're thinking, but that's her way of thinking. It's useless for you to worry now. Besides, life is long. She just said that she doesn't want to get married now, but it doesn't mean that she'll think the same in the future. There are many variables. Qiao Fei thought so too and couldn't help but worry. Actually, I'd rather that Jean and Lord Song have something. But they're just friends. She doesn't even like Lord Song. This is too scary. Mu Jinming said. It's not that she doesn't like him. It's just that they don't have that kind of thought in their hearts, right? Qiao Fei said, she doesn't even like Lord Song. I think she really wants to be alone for the rest of her life. Mu Jinming was speechless. Mu Jinming didn't know how to react to his wife's superstition about Song Yanqing's looks. Chapter 443. The next day, Mu Qiji went on a blind date, and Xiao Jin didn't stay idle either. It wasn't that she didn't want to stay idle, but she was dragged by Muzillion to watch Mu Qiji go on a blind date. Peeping. She didn't understand Muzillion's bad taste, but Muzillion said with conviction, you stay at home every day and don't go anywhere. I think you're going to rot. Big Brother's blind date is such an important thing. Don't you know how to read fortunes? Go to the scene and help him take a look. Xiao Jin was silent for a moment. I think Qi Ji believes it. It's not appropriate for us to be there. Muzillion, who said we have to be there? Can't we just not let Big Brother know? So she was dragged along. Mu Qiji had told them the location of the blind date last night, so they knew where it was. The first blind date was for people with status and reputation, so naturally, it was at a place that required an appointment. It was a Western restaurant on a building. The restaurant was on the balcony, and one could overlook the city from midair. It was quite spectacular. The scenery was extraordinary, and so was the extra money. There weren't many people eating, so it was easy to be noticed if they sat together. So Xiao Jin and Muzillion sat on the other side of the restaurant, one building away from Mu Qiji. They could only vaguely see each other's shadows. Xiao Jin put her elbows on the table and rubbed her chin with her fingers. She felt something unusual. She looked down and saw a wave of energy. He was familiar with the energy that remained in this place. Song Yanqing did it here. She tilted her head and looked down. If someone with acrophobia came here, they would definitely fall into a state of dizziness and their legs would probably go weak on the spot. Muzillion saw that Mu Qiji's woman hadn't arrived yet, so he gossiped with Xiao Jin. Hey, something happened here a few days ago. Xiao Jin looked up at him. What's the matter? Muzillion was extremely gossipy. It said that a rich second generation overseas drove a sports car and got high on drugs. Right below this building, he stepped on the accelerator and crashed into the marble sculpture. The car was destroyed on the spot. TSK, TSK, TSK. It's not easy to be born in a rich family, but you don't cherish it. How can you touch drugs? Xiao Jin, is this the reason why you don't do anything other than disco? Muzillion. What do you mean? Mocking me. Who would have thought that Muzillion, a second-generation rich kid, would have such awareness? Xiao Jin smiled. Her smile was extremely beautiful. Her pair of eyes were like crescent moons. It looked particularly moving. Muzillion tilted his head. Don't smile at me. I don't buy it. Xiao Jin, oh. If Xiao Jin wasn't related to him, Muzillion might have thought about it. Unfortunately, Xiao Jin was his sister. Even if they weren't related by blood, it was still a joke. Muzillion sighed. Muzillion looked in Mu Qiji's direction and his eyes lit up. Hurry, hurry, hurry. She's here. The person he was talking about was naturally Mu Qiji's blind date. Xiao Jin turned around and saw a noble girl with long, flowing hair. She was wearing a white, tight-fitting dress and a suit jacket of the same color. In terms of aura, she was indeed very good. Her figure was also very good. Muzillion couldn't see clearly from afar. He could only vaguely see that it was a woman with long hair. Ah, her figure is not bad. Men would naturally look at a woman's figure first. Xiao Jin furrowed her brows as she looked at him. Chapter 444. She asked Muzillion, which family is this girl from? Mu Xiangshan had told her about his blind date in private and had never mentioned it at the dinner table. Muzillion thought for a moment. I think her surname is Ho, but I can't remember her name. I've never heard of it before. It said that it was an old friend of Grandpa's. Mu Xiangshan's friend had met her before, but that didn't mean that he had met every member of the Mu family. What's wrong? Muzillion felt that Xiao Jin's expression was somewhat thought-provoking. Do you think her appearance isn't good enough? Of course not. Xiao Jin shook her head. She's too far away. I can't see her clearly. She's a good person. She was just saying it casually. In fact, she had already seen that the girl was extraordinary. She was a spiritual psychic. According to the marriage fate she had calculated, Muchiji and this relationship shouldn't end well. However, she wasn't very clear about the process. Now, it was another spiritual psychic. Xiao Jin could eavesdrop on their conversation if she wanted to, but she wasn't interested. It was Muchiji's blind date, not her. It was boring enough being dragged along by Muzillion. Muzillion could only see that Muchiji seemed to be chatting well with the girl. Judging from their interaction, he didn't know what they were talking about. He seemed a little anxious. It would be great if I could hear what they were talking about. Xiao Jin, why are you so concerned about Qiji's blind date? Muzillion, what do you know? It's Big Brother's first blind date. Shouldn't I check for him? Xiao Jin, check with your eyes. Muzillion straightened up and looked at Xiao Jin with a serious expression. What do you mean? Once again, he detected a hint of mockery in her words. Xiao Jin, it's superficial. Muzillion, Muchiji and his blind date chatted for an hour. Anyone could tell that they had a good chat. Xiao Jin and Muzillion didn't just wait. The two of them ate some food before they saw Muchiji and his blind date leaving together. Xiao Jin was still cutting the steak in front of her when Muzillion reached out and pulled her aside. Go, change positions. Xiao Jin stared at the steak he hadn't eaten yet. I don't want to go. Muzillion, no, we agreed to come out together. How can you run away? Xiao Jin, you don't know where they're going next. Muzillion, with my brother's style, how can he think of anything romantic? If he's not going to a cafe to continue drinking tea and chatting, then he's going to play golf and ride horses. I'll ask him in the family chat later. Xiao Jin was about to say something about the family chat when he heard a strange female voice. Qilian. Xiao Jin and Muzillion turned their heads at the same time and saw a girl in a tight lemon-colored dress looking at them. Muzillion's expression changed. He was in disbelief and indescribable awkwardness. You're back from abroad. Xiao Jin immediately looked at Muzillion. At that moment, Muchilian saw curiosity in the eyes of this cheap little sister of hers, who had always been indifferent. The girl's long hair was very similar to Xiao Jin's. They were both slightly curly seaweed, but it wasn't as long and soft as Xiao Jin's. Moreover, it was permed into a more obvious light gold color. She looked fashionable and stylish, but when she looked at Xiao Jin, there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. Your new girlfriend. She's pretty. Chapter 445. Muzillion's eagerness to look for his elder brother had completely disappeared. He sat in his seat as if he was glued to it. He was a little stiff and could not move. Hearing this, he only faintly replied, she actually wanted to lie. Xiao Jin looked at the girl with a smile. No, I'm his relative. Muzillion, it was fine to clarify, but what kind of magical word was relative? Would it kill him to say that he was a sister? Relative. The girl, who had heard Muzillion admit it, looked a little disappointed. Now that she heard it, she looked at Muzillion strangely and said self-deprecatingly, Why are you lying to me? Are you afraid that I will pester you? Don't worry, I won't. Most men had a melodramatic past. It seemed that Muzillion was not surprised. He had encountered his own melodramatic past. Muzillion was even more embarrassed when he heard this. In the past, he had always been angry. Now, he wanted to pretend that no one had seen him. Hearing the girl's words, he could only smile awkwardly. He did not know what to say. The girl blinked and stared at Muzillion. I just came back. I didn't expect to see you. It's quite a coincidence. You don't have to be like this. I just wanted to say hello. It seems that you still don't want to talk to me. I won't bother you. Eat your meal. After saying this, she picked up her bag and turned to leave. Xiao Jin immediately leaned over to Muzillion and said indifferently, "Qi Lian, who is she?" Muzillion's face was wooden. "What if I say I don't want to say?" "Xiao Jin, I want to hear." "Muzillion, do you know how to write the word preserved?" At this time, Muzillion was so worried that he wanted to take out a cigarette and smoke. He leaned back in his chair, put one hand on the table, and turned to look at the scenery outside the building. He actually had the vicissitudes of a mature man. Then, he told Xiao Jin a melodramatic story. Muzillion's character was obvious. He was a playboy when he was in school. At that time, he and Musachu were the most popular people in the school. There were countless girls chasing after them. Compared to Musachu's cold attitude, Muzillion basically didn't reject anyone. He hadn't done anything like two-timing, but his relationship gap wouldn't last long. If he was too popular, this relationship might end in 3 days, and the next relationship would start the next day. The girl just now was called Enchanting. In the second year of high school, she was in the class next to Muzillion. She was the prettiest girl in the class. Her grades were especially good and she was also very arrogant. However, she fell in love with Muzillion. When she confessed to Muzillion, it happened to be when he broke up with his girlfriend. He didn't reject her. When he was with Enchanting, it gave Muzillion a special feeling of novelty. Enchanting was very good in her studies, and she was very simple. She liked him wholeheartedly. It was just that her family wasn't very good. Muzillion didn't care about this. He was quite good to Enchanting. However, how could a person like him accept her? In just a month, it slowly faded. This was already a record. When he asked Enchanting to break up, Enchanting naturally didn't agree. Because Muzillion was his first love, he was very straightforward when he asked to break up. Enchanting's unwillingness and pestering made him annoyed. Moreover, there were rumors in the school that Muzillion broke up with her because he disliked her family. Muzillion didn't agree with this. Chapter 446. I swear to God, I was very good to her back then. I didn't even hesitate to buy things for her, even though she basically didn't accept them. Muzillion thought about this and got to the most important part. He was a little worried. I was quite conflicted about her. I didn't expect that after I dumped her, she would be bullied by a few girls in school who liked me. Her life was very difficult, and she was forced to transfer schools. I only found out the reason later. This sounded melodramatic, but it was actually so real. The girls who liked Muzillion were unwilling to give up, so they would gang up on Enchanting, who wasn't very good. It was precisely because of her poor family background that others thought that she was climbing the Muzillion ladder. Once she was dumped, she became a target. That's why I've always felt quite embarrassed because of this. This was also the only time in Muzillion's rich history of relationships that he felt a little guilty about. Later, I found out that her grades were quite good at another school and she was accepted by a famous foreign university. In her third year of high school, she was directly recommended to study abroad. I haven't seen her for a few years, but now it seems that she's doing well. She could even come here to eat. This made Muzillion feel a little comforted. After hearing this, Xiao Jin said, "Ah, it sounds like she's someone you're not worthy of." Muzillion. Am I your brother or not? Xiao Jin stroked his chin. Don't worry. I can see that she doesn't have any marriage ties with you. There's a high chance that she won't have any contact with you anymore. You don't have to worry about some melodramatic things happening. Muzillion. Do you think your words can be true? She has a good future overseas. She could have stayed overseas. Now that she's back, what if she's doing it for me? Xiao Jin hesitated, and Mu Qilian suddenly felt that she might not be able to say anything good with her hesitant look. His face immediately darkened. What else do you want to say? Xiao Jin thought for a moment. I think what Fei Fei usually says about you makes sense. Muzilian, what did Mom say about me? Xiao Jin, you're quite shameless. Muzilian, the sibling relationship between Muzilian and Xiao Jin was officially broken. He left Xiao Jin behind and angrily went to find his friends to dance. Before he left, he even took the initiative to pay the bill. Mu Qiji's blind date was still going on. Muzilian was so angry that he ran away. Xiao Jin was bored, so he went downstairs for a walk. Coincidentally, there was a department store below the building. When she went down, someone called her. She turned around and saw that it was Enchanting who had just left. The girl had a bright and youthful face. It was no wonder that Muzilian, who only looked at faces, would fall for her. Probably because she was a little embarrassed to stop Xiao Jin, she came over hesitantly with a friendly smile on her lips. He didn't leave with you. Xiao Jin smiled faintly. He had something to do and left first. I'm here for a walk. Do you have anything to ask me? Enchanting was a little embarrassed when her thoughts were exposed. Her eyes flashed. Your relatives, right? Did he tell you who I am? Xiao Jin said directly, he did. I know that you're his ex-girlfriend. Enchanting's eyes actually showed some comfort. Well, I'm still his ex-girlfriend. She was not an insignificant passerby. She was really afraid that Muzilian would directly deny her existence. It was not like he could not do such a thing. He had so many girlfriends. Perhaps he had already forgotten her. Chapter 447. Xiao Jin still had a faint smile on her face, looking very amiable. Enchanting looked at her a few times and suddenly smiled. I haven't seen you before. Are you his cousin? Xiao Jin shook her head. Kind of brother and sister. I'm the daughter his mother adopted. Enchanting was a little surprised. She didn't expect that there was such a thing in Muzilian's family. However, she knew very little about Muzilian. Then Enchanting realized that her reaction was a little too much. Even if they were adopted siblings, it had nothing to do with her. It was already a little inappropriate for her to shamelessly come over to ask for information. She immediately smiled and said, actually, I just wanted to ask about him casually. Now that I know, if you feel that it's abrupt, don't take it to heart. Take your time shopping. I'll leave first. Xiao Jin nodded. Enchanting said goodbye to her and left with a smile. She didn't ask for any contact information because there was no reason. Xiao Jin shrugged and casually strolled around in the mall. Along the way, she met several handsome boys who directly came up to her and asked for her phone number. Of course, she rejected them one by one. Her temperament was cold and unapproachable. As long as she shook her head slightly, those boys would retreat. Now people were still in the mall, so they weren't so thick-skinned. However, Xiao Jin's rejection seemed regretful. He could only watch her slowly leave. Not long after she walked out of the mall, she had an inexplicable feeling in her heart. It was an indescribable feeling, but it disappeared in a flash. She frowned slightly, feeling that something had happened. It didn't seem to be a very urgent matter. She shook her head and only took a taxi home. Mu Qiji and his blind date hadn't come back yet. Muzilian didn't come back either. However, Muzichu saw Xiao Jin when he went downstairs. He took the initiative to ask, "Did you see Big Brother's blind date?" Muzichu knew that she and Muzilian went to join in the fun. Xiao Jin nodded. I saw her. She's beautiful, has a good temperament, and a good figure. Musichu asked, what about the rest? Xiao Jin, no. Musichu, after a while, Musichu actually revealed a rare smile, as if he found it funny. Why do you look at him so much like Muzillion? They only looked at appearance. Xiao Jin was a little confused. What else do I need to see? What kind of person this person is, the heart of unity will judge. I'm not the one who went on the blind date. Yes. Musichu looked behind her. He didn't come back with you. Xiao Jin said, I bumped into one of his ex-girlfriends. He might have had other thoughts, so he ran away. Musichu knew that Muzillion's ex-girlfriends were everywhere. It wasn't strange that they bumped into each other, so he didn't ask what was going on. At night, Mu Qizhi returned home. Xiao Fei, who was very concerned about her son's progress, jumped out immediately. She asked Mu Qizhi with starry eyes, Mu Qizhi, how was it? Did you have a good chat with Miss Ho? Mu Qizhi nodded with a faint smile on his lips. It was okay. If he said it was okay, it meant that it was a good chat. Xiao Fei was a little emotional. Oh, you already have a girlfriend. Mom can put down the stone in her heart. We're still friends. Miss Ho needs to think about it. I also need to think about it. Although it was a blind date, it wasn't the kind that was in a hurry to establish a relationship. He and Miss Ho had a good relationship, but it wasn't the time to directly settle down. Chapter 448. Well, it's fine as long as you two have something going on. Xiao Fei thought that since they chatted well after the blind date, there was an 80% chance of success. Why don't you find a suitable time to bring Miss Ho home for dinner? Just as they were talking, Muzillion came back. However, he walked aggressively and looked a little angry, as if someone had provoked him. Xiao Fei's attention was immediately diverted. Qi Lian, what's with your expression? Muzillion waved his hand and was rather annoyed. Don't mention it. I met a lunatic on my way back. He's not my car. He's from abroad. He's as arrogant as me. If it weren't for the traffic police, I would have plucked his blonde hair. Not your car. Xiao Fei was a little worried. Are you okay? Muzillion shook his head. Of course I'm fine. The traffic police were there. I argued with him and he said he didn't do it on purpose. Fuck, I clearly saw that he did it on purpose. The traffic police saw that he was a foreigner and called it an accident. He only came back now. I'll see him again. Xiao Fei slapped the back of Muzillion's head. Do you think I don't know your character? You must have offended him. Muzillion was speechless. He wasn't a lunatic. Why would he offend a foreign lunatic on the road? Mu Qizhi also frowned. Maybe it was an accident. It's over. But when can you change your temper? Who did you learn it from? Muzillion heard Mu Qizhi's words and immediately shut his mouth. At this time, most of the family members were back and it was time for dinner. Xiao Jin also saw Muzillion when she went downstairs. She saw the gray aura above Muzillion's head. Muzillion was now in the Mu family. Logically speaking, nothing should have happened to him. Now that there was a gray aura, it could only mean that he was targeted. Coincidentally, she heard Muzillion complaining to Mu Jinming that he met a lunatic on his way back. She hesitated for a moment before saying, Qi Lian, you better be careful when you go out these days. Muzillion, although the fraud sister's words were unreliable, Muzillion felt a chill run down his spine when he heard her words. Mu Xiangshan raised an eyebrow. His glabella is black. Xiao Jin nodded. That's pretty much the case. Mu Xiangshan sighed and looked at Muzilian. Did you hear that? Don't go out for the time being. How dare you go out to dance? Recently, there have been reports of boys being raped when they come home in the middle of the night. How dare you go out to dance? Everyone, Mu Zhenming almost spat out the soup in his mouth. Qiao Fei also coughed dryly. She said awkwardly, Dad, what are you talking about? Qi Lian is a boy. Besides, he drives every day, Mu Xiangshan snorted. In this society, it's not safe to be a man or a woman. Don't you pay attention? Your sister already said that your glabella is black. Muzilian thought for a moment and actually agreed. Maybe. I met that lunatic in the afternoon. Mu Qiji, don't be superstitious. Because he hadn't been home for too long, he actually felt mentally and physically exhausted. After finishing dinner in a quiet atmosphere, Qiao Jin went upstairs. Her computer was beeping. Naturally, it was business. Ever since she started to limit her income, she handled things much faster. She only needed to take on a few orders. These were all small matters that didn't require much effort. Today, someone got an order, but he didn't look for Qiao Jin. It was only until late at night that he sent a message to Qiao Jin. Chapter 449. Qiao Jin looked at the content of the message. Anonymous buyer XX, Master, do you calculate everything here? This person was probably an extravagant person, as he had placed a fake calamity of 5,999. Today, more or less. Kiss, what do you want to calculate? Anonymous buyer XX, will the person I like me? Today, you should be calculating your marriage. Anonymous buyer XX, I don't think there's any difference. Qiao Jin paused for a moment and then continued typing. Today, name, birthday, give me. The other party sent these two messages. Qiao Jin used the array to deduce twice and then frowned. Today, your name and birthday. The other party sent another message. However, it was fake. Because these two pieces of information were from dead people. Qiao Jin didn't say it out loud. She felt that there was something wrong with this fortune teller. Today, kiss, don't joke around. Please give me real information. This is fake information. Anonymous buyer XX, this is real. How can it be fake information? Can you do it or not? Was it a lie? Qiao Jin's face darkened when she heard this. Through the computer, she found some information about the other party. Just like how she could instantly find out the information about the fortune teller, she soon knew that something was wrong. She took out her phone and pressed 110 with her fingertip. This was a murderer. The two messages she just sent were from people who were already dead. From the array, it seemed to be a young couple. However, the array could only give a rough rendering of the environment and couldn't tell the specific location. The reason why Qiao Jin wanted to call the police was because she sensed that the couple had a child. The couple had just died not long ago, even an hour ago. With a little speculation, she could deduce something bad. The child and the murderer were together. Today, I need your information. Anonymous buyer XX, it seems that you're quite accurate. This time, the other party finally sent her his real name. Qiao Jin was silent for a minute. Then, she set up an array and instantly teleported to the place where this person was located. This was a brand new house. The decorations were warm, simple and generous, and the bedroom was bright. There was a big red bed with the word 11 pasted on it, proving that this was the home of a newlywed couple. If it weren't for the gruesome female corpse lying on the bed and the male corpse with a knife in his back on the ground, perhaps this would have been a very normal family. There was a computer desk next to the wall in front of the bed. A delicate black-haired woman was sitting in front of the computer desk. She was holding a child in her arms as she stared at the computer screen. On the screen was the chat history with Xiao Jin. The sudden appearance of a person in the room gave the woman quite a fright. Just as she was about to turn around, a pair of hands landed on her shoulders. The girl's cold words seemed to penetrate her eardrums. "You made me waste a spirit seed, how annoying. Now, give the child to me." Those words seemed to pierce right through her heart, causing the woman to shudder and panic. There was still a trace of crazed pleasure on her face, and there were even traces of blood on her face. Suddenly seeing this kind of thing, she was even more shocked than killing someone herself. She almost couldn't control herself. Trembling, she raised the baby in her arms that was a few months old. The baby was sleeping soundly as if he didn't know anything. Chapter 450. Xiao Jin reached out to take the baby and looked coldly at the woman. "You killed 2 people for your own selfish desires. Are you worthy of being called a human?" The woman's body was cold, but she couldn't move. She looked at Xiao Jin with fear and disbelief. "You are a spiritual reader." This sentence made Xiao Jin's gaze sink. He held the baby and looked at the woman. "You know about spiritual readers?" She was an ordinary person. How could she know about spiritual readers? According to Xiao Jin's thoughts, ordinary people didn't need to know about the existence of spiritual readers unless they were part of the group that controlled the political power. There was another possibility, and that was that this woman had a family member who was a spiritual reader. Sometimes, no matter how well it was hidden, there would be a time when it would be exposed. The woman's lips trembled. "You can't touch me. If you touch me, you'll be making an enemy of the Wanyan family." Wanyan family. Xiao Jin's face showed a hint of interest. Where did this family come from? It wasn't new for spiritual readers to have families. This Wanyan family, what was their relationship with the Zhongli family? "You don't know about the Wanyan family. You're clearly a spiritual reader." The woman stared at Xiao Jin. Although she was a little frightened at first, she slowly calmed down. The Wanyan family controls a part of the spirit group. "I'm a member of the Wanyan family. You can't touch me." When she said this, she was actually a little arrogant. It seemed that the Wanyan family gave her a lot of confidence. Although she wasn't a spiritual reader, she could threaten one. Xiao Jin smiled. "If I kill you now, who do you think will know that I killed you?" Her face suddenly stiffened. "My family has people who can track a spiritual reader like you. If you kill me, not only will you not be able to escape, your family won't be able to escape either." Xiao Jin blinked. "To be honest, I'm not afraid of threats. Your words made me laugh, so I don't plan to kill you. You can accept the trial of the law." Xiao Jin smiled and slowly placed the baby in the cradle. Then, she pushed the cradle out. Wan Yanwei wanted to move but discovered that she couldn't. Xiao Jin pushed the baby outside and didn't move. Wan Yanwei didn't know what she was doing, but after a while, she heard the sound of someone breaking in. "Don't move, officer." With a shout, Wan Yanwei's face paled a bit. However, in the face of such a scene, a strange smile appeared on her face. She actually handed herself over to the police. She was really too stupid. A vicious murder case occurred in Nanhu district. A newlywed couple died tragically in their home. The murderer has been arrested. Early in the morning, Xiao Jin caught a glimpse of this report in the newspaper that Mu Xiangshan was reading. The reporter's actions were also very fast. Mu Xiangshan even commented, "She actually killed someone for love. Are all young people nowadays so perverted?" At the table, Musilian, the only young person at home, felt offended. He ate some porridge and wasn't too happy. Grandpa, what you said is a small group of young people who are perverted. If you say this outside, people will say that you're shooting a gun. Mu Xiangshan glanced at Muzillion. Aren't you a pervert too? Muzillion. Was there still a place for him in this family? Chapter 451. He glanced at Xiao Jin angrily. She's a young person too. Are you saying she's a pervert? Mu Xiangshan said, she's better than you. Muzillion stood up and said angrily, I'm not eating anymore. Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan didn't say anything. Muzillion, he suddenly turned and rushed out of the door. I can't stay in this house anymore. I'm going out. Mu Xiangshan sighed. Remember what Xiao Jin said last night. Be careful when you go out. Your glabella is dark. Muzillion, he was just about to go out. Grandpa, it wasn't appropriate for you to curse him, right? Muzillion didn't take it to heart. Xiao Jin was a quack. How would she know so much? Was the fortune-telling method that she learned from the internet definitely good? Naive. After Muzillion left, Xiao Jin put down her bowl and chopsticks. I'm done eating. I'm going out to play. Mu Xiangshan never said anything about Xiao Jin going out. Xiao Jin had saved a child last night. But soon, she realized something that even she couldn't solve. She was banned. That's right. Banned. Including her Weibo account and her fortune-telling shop. The reason was that she was superstitious. This was not allowed in the country. Xiao Jin didn't even blink. She knew who was behind this. There were many fortune-telling shops in the cat treasure shop. Not to mention, there were many scammers on Weibo and WeChat under the guise of fortune-telling. Others weren't banned. Why was she the only one targeted? She knew that Wan Yanwei, who she let go last night, wasn't someone who knew her place. Xiao Jin curled her lips. She wasn't worried about her account being banned. She still had 10 to 20,000 yuan in it. She had already taken out a sum of money, so she wasn't in a hurry. She hadn't gone far before someone came knocking on her door. The people who came to look for her were the two siblings from the Zhong family. Zhongli Peining rolled down the car window and looked directly at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin, can we have a chat? Xiao Jin glanced at them with a faint smile. Did the Wanyan clan send you here? Zhongli Shiyu's eyes immediately darkened. Zhongli Peining's smile was a bit stiff, but she didn't deny it. Yes. Xiao Jin nodded. This time, he did not refuse Zhongli Peining and her brother. He got into the car directly. Zhongli Shiyu started the car. Xiao Jin didn't ask where he was going. He just looked at the scenery outside the car window. Zhongli Peining looked at Xiao Jin and hesitated. Xiao Jin, you won't kill people, right? Xiao Jin looked at Zhongli Peining with a smile. So Wan Yanwei told you that I killed the couple and held her there. That's why you came here. Now you're ready to deal with me. Zhongli Peining didn't expect her to guess so clearly. However, when she thought about her foresight ability, she suddenly understood. Actually, I don't believe it. Of course you can't believe it. Xiao Jin raised his eyebrows. I'm just a foresight-type spiritual reader. I roughly know what you want to do. However, you don't think that I have such a strong ability to do these things, right? Zhongli Shiyu's cold gaze locked onto her from the rearview mirror. Then how did you know about Wan Yanwei? Xiao Jin said, I said that I'm a foresight master. Of course, I can get information about myself in advance. Chapter 452. She tilted her head and looked out of the window. Wan Yan Wei did a fortune-telling in my shop. I knew that she was a murderer. I called the police and she framed me to clear her name. Isn't this normal? Zhongli Peining said, she said that you appeared at the crime scene. Qiao Jin said, what she says is the truth. Qiao Jin just smiled faintly and didn't completely deny it. However, for Zhongli Peining, her words had some meaning of denial. Wan Yan Wei was lying, so Qiao Jin's words were understandable. Zhongli Peining and her brother looked at each other. There was some hesitation in her eyes. We want to bring you back to the spirit group for a small test. You don't mind, right? Qiao Jin said, I don't mind. Hearing that she was going to the spirit group, she wanted to see what the layout of the spirit group was. She wanted to see if she could find the place where they hid the spirit seed. Although she felt that the Zhong siblings didn't know about the spirit seed. The spirit group was located in the suburbs. Zhongli Shiyu drove for a long time. The location was also very hidden. It should be private territory nearby. There were basically no cars coming and going. Instead, she felt the aura of a spiritual psychic. When Qiao Jin went over, she found that this should be a restricted area. In the middle was a tall villa building. The door was tightly shut. It was a few minutes' drive inside. Along the way, there were many more feelings of surveillance. The surrounding landscape was built like a park. There were also small bars. There were many people walking on the side of the road. They all had the aura of a spiritual psychic. This was the spirit group's territory. Seeing Zhongli Shiyu drive in, many spiritual psychics looked over curiously. Qiao Jin rolled down the car window. Many spiritual psychics saw her and were a little surprised. Is she the legendary wizard with the ability of foresight? Wow, this ability is very strong. It's almost rare. Didn't she say that she wouldn't join the spirit group? Why is she here now? I heard that she somehow provoked the Wanyan family. Listening to their whispers, Qiao Jin learned some information. The Wanyan clan was much more high profile than she had imagined. When the car drove to the villa area, it was much more spacious. Except for a few sofas in the hall, most of the other places were installed with modern high-tech equipment. There were also some spiritual readers who did not shy away from using their abilities in the villa area. Basically, they were all common types. The Zhong siblings brought Qiao Jin out of the car. Qiao Jin saw two young people and a middle-aged man standing in front of the door. The young people were a man and a woman. Their expressions were serious. After Zhongli Shiyu got out of the car, he shouted, "Uncle Shi, I've brought him." The middle-aged man nodded. He was dressed in a suit and his hairstyle was styled meticulously with hair gel. He looked very fashionable. If it wasn't for his age, he would have been an influential figure when he was young. The man and woman behind him were much younger. At this moment, they were frowning slightly as they looked at Qiao Jin. The boy's gaze seemed to be sizing her up. Wan Yanqi waved his hand. "Bring her in." His tone was very rude, as if he was used to giving orders. The Zhong siblings followed him as if they were used to it. Qiao Jin stood in place but did not move. Her tone was very indifferent. "Since we're here, at least tell me why you brought me here." Chapter 453. Zhongli Shiyu tilted his head and looked at her mockingly. "Don't you have the ability to predict the future? You can't even think of this." Zhongli Peining pulled Zhongli Shiyu's arm and explained to her gently, "Don't be afraid. Uncle Shi is from the Wanyan family. He just wants to ask you about what Wanyan Wei said. If you're not suspicious, we'll let you go after questioning you." Qiao Jin looked at Zhongli Peining. Her beautiful eyes did not even blink. "It was you who brought me here. You had to bear the consequences for your actions. Zhongli Peining didn't understand but still nodded. I know. I'll definitely send you back. She thought Xiao Jin was afraid. After all, this was the spirit group and not the territory of ordinary people. Here, there were spiritualists everywhere and they could subdue Xiao Jin at any time. Even if she had the ability to predict the future, how could she withstand a real battle? Xiao Jin then said, "All right." The other spiritualists looked over curiously but didn't dare to be too obvious because the Wanyan family was present. In the crowd, when He Yao pulled Lan Xiaoni out, she happened to see Xiao Jin being brought in by them. She didn't look good at that time. Why was Xiao Jin here? And he was with the Wanyan family. Fortunately, there were many people who knew about this. He Yao casually asked someone and got a piece of information. Xiao Jin killed someone. He Yao almost felt dizzy. She didn't doubt Xiao Jin's ability, but it was impossible for Xiao Jin to kill an ordinary person. He Yao had heard of the Wanyan family's style of doing things. They actually dared to touch Xiao Jin. She was silent for a moment and didn't panic. She wasn't worried about Xiao Jin. But she was afraid that the spirit group would anger Xiao Jin and the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Xiao Jin was brought into the villa. This place was connected in all directions and all the rooms were used for special purposes. There were 2 floors underground. Here, it was built with a special material. The surroundings were built with a bright white special material and there was a huge mirror in the middle. The double-sided mirror could be seen from the outside but the people inside couldn't see outside. It was a good place for interrogation. There was no signal and they couldn't send messages out, so they didn't even monitor Xiao Jin's phone. This place was made to look like a meeting room. Xiao Jin, Wanyan and Zhongli family siblings came in and closed the door. They were completely isolated from the outside. Xiao Jin didn't sit down. She just looked around slowly. The dazzling white, coupled with the lighting, made the meeting room seem too bright, as if it would not give people too much pressure. However, through the mirror, she could sense that there were countless people looking at her from behind. And no S. She curled her lips into a smile. She didn't expect the Feng family to be here too. Of course, since she had been brought here for interrogation, there would definitely be many people who were curious about her and coveted her ability to predict the future. The higher-ups of the spirit group would also want to know how far Xiao Jin's ability could be used. Sit. Wanyan she asked Xiao Jin to sit down very politely. The 5 of them sat opposite Xiao Jin. He was like a leader. When he sat down, he didn't speak and gave people a lot of pressure. Of course, this was only relative to others. Xiao Jin sat down slowly. When she sat down on the white chair, her body flashed with a light and some data flashed. Chapter 454. On the table in front of her, a row of data flashed. It was written with special numbers, like a special password used by the spirit group. Wanyan she just glanced at it and frowned. C-rank wizard. The girl next to him looked at it curiously. Only C-rank. Zhongli Peining and Zhongli Shiyu frowned. Xiao Jin's ability didn't look like C-rank. Xiao Jin smiled and asked, "How do you classify wizards?" Wanyan she looked at her. Of course. However, only a few spiritual readers knew that the spirit group divided them into ranks. Most of the spiritual readers were only C-rank, so there was no need to let them know that there were higher ranks. Not to mention the concept of array masters and wizards. Xiao Jin understood. Oh. In her eyes, there were only ordinary and slightly extraordinary spiritual readers. It wasn't as detailed as them. Wanyan she raised his chin. The girl next to him took out a tablet and placed it in front of Xiao Jin. This is your account, right? You opened a fortune-telling shop online and are quite accurate. With your ability, how much can you know about the future? It was Xiao Jin's chat history. Of course, the chat information was in the background. This was information on the internet, so Xiao Jin couldn't control it. Unless she didn't want others to investigate, the data would automatically disappear. However, she didn't want to hide it so thoroughly. Xiao Jin looked at the row of clear chat records and touched her chin. If you have doubts about my business, I can understand. Why did you block my account? The girl didn't expect her to ask this and coughed embarrassedly. This, the young boy next to her said faintly, spreading this on the internet is feudal superstition. Moreover, you should understand that your identity as a spiritual reader can't be exposed to ordinary people. Your predictions are too accurate. It may not be a good thing for ordinary people. They will always suspect your existence. Even the country will pay attention to you. Wan Yan, she said, being capable is God's love for you. It's not something that is announced in front of others. People who are too high profile usually don't have a good ending. Xiao Jin, I'm just trying to make some money. Am I in your way? It was at most 10,000 yuan a day. For a spiritual reader like them, was that even money worth it? Everyone, Wan Yan, she frowned. We won't ask about your fortune telling, but you weren't at home last night, right? As he spoke, the young girl swiped across the tablet, and a photo of the dead couple from last night appeared on it. To be honest, most people would scream when they saw this, but Xiao Jin didn't even blink. She only looked at them quietly for 2 seconds. They're very pitiful, aren't they? The child was only a few months old. Don't you know better than me how they died? Why ask me? Wan Yan, she slapped the table heavily. Wei Wei would never do such a thing. Xiao Jin said, the police are arresting her, not me. Wan Yan, he scolded her harshly. You are using your ability to do such a cruel thing. They are just ordinary people. How did they offend you? You want to kill them and frame Wei Wei. Xiao Jin was not frightened by his tone at all. She still calmly put her elbows on the table. Normal people wouldn't ask this question. Before your daughter came to the fortune-telling, I didn't know who the couple was. Chapter 455. Wan Yan Wei was Wan Yan Shi's daughter. Otherwise, why would this man appear here? Wan Yan Shi's pupils constricted and he said hatefully, Wei said last night that you controlled her there and waited for the police to frame her. You're a spiritual reader, what can't you do? This time, even Zhongli Peining couldn't help but remind Wan Yan Shi, Uncle Shi, Xiao Jin is only a Class C spiritual reader with foresight. Her ability was a little special, but she didn't have the ability to fight. How could she do such a thing? In reality, everyone was well aware of who was the culprit last night. If the Wan Yan family had spent some effort to suppress Wan Yan Weibo, it would have been fine. However, they had to frame Xiao Jin. What were they thinking? Wan Yan Shi also knew. He even knew that he was talking nonsense. However, he at least believed that Xiao Jin must have appeared there last night. He said, no matter what, the death of this couple has something to do with you. Wan Yan Wei always revealed things that she didn't dare to tell others. Last night, Xiao Jin appeared there. It was true. But how did she do it? There was no surveillance and it even showed that Xiao Jin was at home. Wan Yan Shi suspected that Xiao Jin might not be a spiritual reader with foresight. She probably had other abilities that she didn't reveal. The machine could detect Xiao Jin's class, but it couldn't detect her ability. However, if she didn't have foresight, how could she explain the fortune-telling shop she opened on the internet? Could it be that she had several abilities? This situation was too rare. If so, even if Qiao Jin was a Class C, she was much more precious than others. This was just a guess. There was no evidence. Wang Yan she was planning to pester endlessly. Qiao Jin sighed slightly. Where's the evidence? The law still needs evidence to punish people. The evidence of your daughter's murder is complete. As for me, you can't take it out. Are you planning to convict me directly? Wang Yan she wanted to say something, but he suddenly heard something. He was wearing a headset. Someone must have said something in the headset. Soon, he left unwillingly. The girl holding the tablet said to Qiao Jin, "My name is Wang Yanjinjin. You don't have to worry. We don't think you are a suspect. What happened to Wei Wei last night was probably because she was framed and you were the one who took the blame. You know, spiritual psychics have many abilities and there are always some unexpected things that are impossible to guard against. Our spirit group is indeed lacking in manpower and we can't guarantee that every spiritual psychic will be discovered." Qiao Jin smiled. "Oh, is that so?" Wang Yanjinjin said in a friendly and polite manner, "Our spirit group exists to protect the safety of ordinary people. Every matter related to a spiritual reader is not a trivial matter, so we must investigate it thoroughly. I know that Shiyu and Peining have looked for you before, but you said that you were not interested in joining the spirit group. Then I want to ask you, as a non-staff member, would you be willing to have the same salary and benefits as an official member? You only need to provide some information to our spirit group at special times. You have foresight, which is too precious for our spirit group." Her eyes seemed to be filled with beautiful expectations. "When I look at you, I know that you are a very beautiful girl. I think you are willing to maintain social stability, right?" Chapter 456. Wang Yanjinjin's words were vulgar, but there was a special magic in them. It was as if she could make people believe her words and even express a state of joy at her praise. This ability was too useless, but she should be a talent if she could be a diplomat. Qiao Jin's smile was indeed very beautiful. "Well said, but I don't want to interfere with the affairs of the spirit group." Wang Yanjinjin's smile froze for a moment. Her ability had no effect on Qiao Jin. This situation could only be seen in a small number of people. The phone signal was cut off, but there was still time. Qiao Jin looked at the time on his phone. "Actually, it was really rash of you to come to me directly today and blame me for what Wang Yanwei did. I advise you to let Wang Yanwei be punished. She has to pay the price for her mistakes. Otherwise, no one can imagine what will happen in the future, right?" She stood up, smiling brightly and elegantly. She didn't seem to be bothered by this matter, but what she said made people feel a chill down their spines. Wang Yanjinjin said, "Wei Wei couldn't have killed anyone. She was framed." As soon as she finished speaking, several people's voices came from their headsets. "Someone wants to take her away. Let her go." Wang Yanjinjin and the others looked at each other, confused. There was actually someone who could bail Qiao Jin out from here. Qiao Jin smiled. "Can I go now?" Wang Yanjinjin and the others were helpless, but there was nothing they could do. Since the news could reach here, it meant that the identity of the person who bailed out Qiao Jin was very important. Zhongli Peining took Qiao Jin out and apologized to Qiao Jin in a low voice. "Miss Qiao, if I offended you today, I'm really sorry." Qiao Jin said, "You don't have to apologize. Anyway, it was a matter of karma, so there was no need to apologize." Qiao Jin went outside and smiled at the person who came to pick him up. "Mr. Song, we meet again." Song Shireen looked at Qiao Jin and sighed. She ignored the shocked gazes of the others and led Qiao Jin to the car. Song Shireen was so busy every day that she shouldn't have come to pick up Qiao Jin in person. But this was a special place, so Song Shirin had to come in person. After getting into the car, Song Weiyin drove away and said to Xiao Jin, "If Guanqing hadn't told me that you were taken away, I wouldn't have known that it was the spirit group." How did Miss Xiao provoke the spirit group? Xiao Jin's expression calmed down. "Mr. Song, I should say that it was the spirit group that provoked me. It was very rash of them." Song Weiyin thought of the miraculous ability of the man who had saved her son. Her eyes flashed, but she didn't say anything. Xiao Jin asked, "Mr. Song isn't a member of the spirit group. How did you find a way to take me out?" Song Weiyin smiled. "I've lived for so many years. At least I have some connections. I have a friend in the spirit group." It wasn't difficult for him to take Miss Xiao out. Xiao Jin immediately knew that the friend she was talking about was most likely someone in the upper echelon of the spirit group. After all, this friend was able to take him away from the Wanyan clan right under their noses. Xiao Jin didn't ask any more questions. He just nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Song, for solving my problem and preventing more trouble. I will remember this favor. If you need any help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask." Song Weiyin said, "Miss Xiao, you are too polite. I don't even know how to thank you for saving my son. This small matter is nothing." Chapter 457. Song Shirin had just returned from abroad, but Song Yanqing had gone abroad. Song Shirin sent Xiao Jin home and didn't ask much about her and the spirit group. How did Song Yanqing know that she was taken away by the spirit group? His ability didn't seem to work on her. She had some doubts, but she still called Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing was in a meeting at this time. When he saw the call, he made a pause gesture and got up to answer the phone outside the meeting room. "You're out." His tone was relaxed. "Wasn't it fun to walk around there?" Xiao Jin chuckled. "How did you know that I went in?" Song Yanqing, some things don't need to be investigated with ability. Modern people have modern ways. My dad planted people in the spirit group. Someone informed me as soon as you went in. It could be seen that the Song family was still very powerful. Song Shirin was an ordinary person, but she could plant people in the spirit group and know the higher-ups of the spirit group. It was no accident that Song Yanqing's fate was changed back then. There was a high probability that he was targeted by someone he knew. Xiao Jin, well, it's not surprising that they came to me. I knew when the woman was taken away by the police. This matter isn't over yet. Some people in the Wanyan family are now suspecting that I have more than one ability. Their family shouldn't be a simple family of spiritual readers. Some people behind them will probably soon guess that I'm an array master. Song Yanqing paused. What trouble will there be? Xiao Jin, it won't be big trouble. Wanyan Wei doesn't get what she deserves. The Wanyan family will walk the same path as the Feng family. The difference is that the Wanyan family didn't do anything outrageous. There will only be some trouble. I was the one who called the police to arrest Wanyan Wei. Because of me, the Wanyan family must have an answer. Wanyan Wei's matter had been passed to Song Yanqing. He saw what this woman had done in the information. He didn't know how to describe it. Some people were so stupid that they could reach a whole new level. Song Yanqing told Xiao Jin some of the information he knew. The Wanyan family is a relatively large family in the world of spiritual readers. There are many people in the family. Wanyan Wei's father is called Wanyan Shi and is the manager of a foundation. Both he and Wanyan Wei do not have any abilities. They only work in the spirit group and are responsible for handling the disputes between the real world and the world of spiritual readers. However, this time, he probably used his power for personal gain. Xiao Jin picked up the phone and walked into the house. He picked up a washed apple from the table and took a small bite. I feel that not only have your abilities improved very quickly, but you've also learned about the spirit group very quickly. Are spirit speakers' abilities to learn things so quickly? Probably. Song Yanqing's lips curled into a faint smile. Combining abilities with real power, the members of the spirit group are just ordinary people. It's the information age now, so it's actually quite easy to gather some information. Oh. Qiao Jin asked casually, then when are you coming back? Song Yanqing paused for a moment. He was a little surprised that Qiao Jin would ask this question. Then, his expression softened and became even gentler. It's only 3 days. On Su Xiu's mother's birthday, I'll come back to bring you over. Don't worry. Qiao Jin, I'm not in a hurry. I'm just asking casually. Song Yanqing. Okay. It was better to ask casually than not care at all. There were some things that would only change inadvertently. He hung up the phone. There was a deep meaning in his eyes. His happy mood was obvious. Chapter 458. Qiao Jin hung up the phone and saw Qiao Fei rushing back. Seeing Qiao Jin, she only said, "Jin, are you home?" After saying that, she threw the shopping bag she bought in the mall on the sofa and hurried upstairs. Qiao Jin waited for her to come down. Before he could say anything, Qiao Fei said, "Jin, come with me to the hospital. Your damn brother got into a fight with someone and got beaten up. He's lying in the hospital now. It's so infuriating." Although she was angry, her eyes were full of worry. She grabbed Qiao Jin's arm and ran. Qiao Jin didn't stop her. She left with Qiao Fei. She was surprised that Muzilian got into trouble so quickly. The chauffeur sent them to the hospital. Qiao Jin asked, "Who did he fight with?" "I don't know. He doesn't want me to know. If his brother hadn't called me, I wouldn't have known that he got into a fight with someone. He's itching for a beating. Look, he finally got beaten up. He deserves it." Although Qiao Fei said so, she didn't think so. She didn't know the details. She could only find out after going to the hospital. When they arrived at the private hospital, Qiao Jin and Qiao Fei found Muzilian lying in the VIP ward. He was eating fruit and watching TV on the bed. When he saw Qiao Fei and Qiao Jin barging in, he suddenly wailed and covered himself with the quilt. "Why are you here?" He didn't cover himself in time. Qiao Jin saw the bruises on his face. What was more funny was that his left eye was obviously beaten up. There was a black and blue circle and it was red. The other problems weren't very serious. Qiao Jin saw that the gray aura on his body had dissipated. It seemed like this was the disaster, and it wasn't too serious. He just didn't know the reason. Qiao Fei rushed forward and pulled Muzilian's blanket. As he pulled, he scolded, "Aren't you good at fighting outside? Why don't you dare let me know? Let me tell you, this time, your father, grandfather, and big brother are all here. You see how they will deal with you. You are still fighting outside. You little bastard, how are you? Show me." Qiao Fei's tears fell as he spoke, and he sounded like he was about to cry. As soon as Muzilian heard her cry, he did not dare to cover the quilt again. Trembling with fear, he lifted the quilt and smiled embarrassedly. "Mom, don't cry. It's not a big deal. It was just that the other party was too humiliating." After the fight, he even sent someone to send him to the hospital and informed his family, his brother. Motherfucker. What a beast. Qiao Fei saw the injuries on Muzilian's face. After looking left and right, there were only a few bruises. Although her heart ached, she sighed in relief. Her tears could not stop. She turned and looked at Mu Zillian's face. Just your face. Where else are you hurt? Mu Zillian looked awkwardly at Xiao Jin, who was behind Xiao Fei. You can come alone. Why did you bring her? It was too embarrassing to let her see his injured face in front of Xiao Jin. Xiao Fei waved her hand and slapped him through the quilt. Can't you see? You can fight, but you can't let us know. Don't you feel embarrassed? Don't you feel embarrassed? As she spoke, her tears stopped. She asked, who hit you? Mu Zillian hesitated, as if he didn't want to say. Chapter 459. Xiao Fei looked at his guilty expression and asked directly, were you the one who started it? Of course it wasn't me. Mu Zillian retorted loudly. Although I have a bad temper, I don't have a reason to cause trouble for others. It was that bastard. Looking at Xiao Fei's sharp eyes, he swallowed a string of profanities. It was the foreign blonde that I said yesterday. Don't drive my car. Xiao Fei was stunned for a moment. You met again so soon. Could it be that you didn't handle it well yesterday and fought with him at the police station? Then you can still see me at the hospital now. Mu Zillian slapped the blanket angrily. Of course not. I didn't know how I met him again when I went out this afternoon. You know my temper. I hate both new and old. More importantly, he paused for a moment, as if hiding a key piece of information. Anyway, I quarreled with the blonde and fought with him. Unfortunately, my skills were not as good as his. He didn't win. It was too fucking embarrassing. Although the blonde was also injured, it was not worth mentioning compared to Mu Zillian's injuries. Especially when the blonde had called 120 to inform his family to humiliate him and even paid for his medical fees. It was so comprehensive that Mu Zillian seriously suspected that the blonde had planned this all along. When he saw that woman later, Mu Zillian knew that the blonde had indeed planned this all along. Fucking femme fatale. It was all because of the trouble he caused in the past. However, he didn't dare to tell Xiao Fei. Fortunately, Xiao Fei didn't hear the key part. He only said angrily, how can you fight so casually? Wasn't he the one who left the car first? Is there still law? We have to call the police. Xiao Jin walked up. Who beat you up? Mu Zillian saw her and turned his head away in embarrassment to hide his injuries. He said proudly, it's none of your business. I will take revenge for myself. Xiao Jin said, you didn't beat him this time. I don't think you can beat him again. Mu Zillian, Xiao Fei said, fighting is not a good thing. We need to find the police. Xiao Jin, no need. Mu Zillian also said, don't call the police first. Xiao Fei immediately hit Mu Zillian again. Look at how guilty you are. You must be the one who started the trouble by not calling the police, you little bastard. Just you wait, I'll ask your dad to teach you a lesson tonight. Mu Zillian hugged his head and wailed, Mom, I beg you. I'm already so miserable and you still hit me. Can't you give me some face? Xiao Fei, you've already been beaten up and sent to the hospital. Do you still care about your reputation? Mu Zillian, his heart was pierced. What was even more heart-wrenching was that not only did Mu Zichu inform Xiao Fei, even Mu Xiangshan, who was drinking tea outside, was called over. After Mu Zhiming learned that Mu Zillian was fine, he expressed that he would come over at night to express his condolences. His big brother was now on the way. Mu Zillian knew what was going to happen to him next. His face was full of despair. When Mu Xiangshan arrived and saw Mu Zillian's miserable state, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Aya, why did my good grandson get beaten up? Mu Zillian, if you didn't sound so happy, I would think you were expressing anger. When Mu Xiangshan came to see Mu Zillian, Xiao Jin quietly left the ward. Even if Mu Zillian didn't say anything, she had already deduced it. Sure enough, he had provoked a romantic debt. However, no matter what, Musilian was still her family. He didn't do anything bad, so no one could touch him. Chapter 460. Xiao Jin didn't have to waste time looking for the culprit. The culprit had already arrived at the hospital. When Xiao Jin saw Enchanting, she was struggling to pull a 2-meter-tall blonde foreign man over. He wasn't particularly burly, but he looked like the kind of man who had strength. It was expected that Musilian couldn't beat him. The other party's face was also extraordinarily good-looking. It was rare among foreigners, and it wasn't worse than the popular stars in Europe and America. However, when he was pulled by Enchanting, his expression didn't change. Musichu was also beside them. Enchanting dragged him over, and her expression was also very angry. Joel, you really don't know your limits. I already said that he has nothing to do with me, and he doesn't owe me when we broke up. Why are you making trouble for him? He's already being polite by not calling the police for my sake. If you don't apologize this time, you can go back directly. Don't come with me again. She spoke in English. Because she was angry, she spoke quickly and anxiously. The foreign man named Joel just glanced at her casually, as if her words were air. Enchanting was very angry. This is Huaxia. It's our territory. Joel, don't think that you're abroad. When Xiao Jin walked over, Musichu saw her and shouted, Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin nodded. Enchanting turned around. When she saw Xiao Jin, although she was a little surprised, she remembered that she was Musilian's sister. Now that she saw her, it seemed to prove it. An embarrassed expression appeared on Enchanting's face. Xiao Jin walked in front of them and glanced at Joel. Were you the one who hit Qi Lian? Musichu reached out and pulled Xiao Jin back. He did it. The details are still in the process. I'll ask him to apologize to Qi Lian. Xiao Jin's eyes were calm. Is it enough to apologize for hitting someone for no reason? Musichu's expression was also very indifferent. I know what you want to say. It's because I can't beat him. Therefore, they could only settle for the second best and choose the proper method. He spoke too naturally, but when he looked at Joel and then at Musichu, he could understand. Musichu wasn't like Musilian, who often fooled around outside. His life revolved around his studies and family business, and he often worked out. This foreign man was handsome, but he exuded a bandit aura. The man named Joel obviously understood Chinese. When he heard Xiao Jin and Musichu talking to each other, his lips curled into a mocking smile. I'm really sorry. It's all my fault. Enchanting walked up to Xiao Jin and bowed slightly to her. She looked very nervous. I didn't expect that Musilian would be affected because of what happened in the past. Xiao Er is a classmate I met abroad. Because we are very close, I told him some things about me and the Musilian. I didn't expect that Xiao Er would make trouble for him. I will pay for the medical expenses and mental damage. I'm really sorry. Because she was in the wrong now, she looked a little humble when she apologized. Before Xiao Jin said anything, Joel said impatiently, You transferred schools because of him. Shouldn't he be responsible for it? Xiao Jin immediately narrowed her eyes and looked at Musilian. What he needs to be responsible for is between him and Enchanting. What does it have to do with you? Joel looked at her arrogantly, raised his chin slightly, and put one hand on Enchanting's shoulder. She is the woman I like. Chapter 461. Every word and sentence was clearly written in Mandarin. Foreigners were open-minded. Enchanting shook off Joel's hand awkwardly. What are you talking about? Now their relationship seemed clear. Because Ing Changrui was the woman he liked, he wanted to avenge Ing Changrui. But in fact, Ing Changrui and Muzilian had nothing to do with each other. Muzilian was a jerk because he broke up too quickly. It was a stretch to count him as someone who bullied Ing Changrui because she liked him. Xiao Jin had always believed that every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. Muzilian's matter should be solved by Muzilian and Ing Changrui themselves. It was not a reason for outsiders to intervene. You like her, so you helped her deal with my brother. Musachu frowned slightly. Joel looked at him. If it weren't for Muzilian's temperament, he would have mistaken Musachu for Muzilian and hit the wrong person. Hearing this, he just turned his head arrogantly. Ing Changrui rubbed her temples with a headache. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned the past and implicated Muzilian. I'll apologize to him. He can do whatever he wants. In fact, she didn't blame Muzilian. She knew very well that breaking up was a matter between two people. She was not reconciled. She was bullied by others, not Muzilian. But after all, he was the first boy she liked in so many years. Muzilian was her white moonlight, and she couldn't forget him. It was inevitable that she was a little sad when she was studying abroad. Joel was her classmate, and they had always had a good relationship. During their conversation, she would occasionally talk about the past. She didn't expect that Joel would remember it. This time, when he returned to China, he actually found trouble with Muzilian. God knew how he found out about Muzilian. Now that he had caused trouble, she had no choice but to take the blame since she was the one who had brought him into the country. Xiao Jin shook his head slowly. Whoever did it has to take responsibility. Since he can hit others, he can't blame others for returning the hand. Ing Changrui was stunned. She didn't expect Xiao Jin to refuse to apologize. She did not mind, but Joel was a boxer when he was abroad. Sure enough, Joel was still arrogant. You can fight back however you want. It doesn't matter if you come together. Musachu also gently grabbed Xiao Jin's shoulder and said in a calm voice. Don't be impulsive, we can't find the right person now. We're still in the hospital. Mom and Grandpa are inside. Big Brother will be here soon. Don't worry, Big Brother will help Qi Lian settle this matter. Xiao Jin said, there's no need. We don't need to trouble the police. We'll settle it ourselves. If you... Welcome. Just as she finished speaking and the three of them were still puzzled, they saw Xiao Jin's figure move. Bang! Bang! Joel didn't even have time to react before he felt a heavy blow in front of his eyes. He was a boxer, so his reaction speed wasn't slow. However, he didn't see how Xiao Jin did it. Under Mu Chi-chu and Ing Changrui's astonished gazes, Xiao Er howled and fell to the ground, covering his eyes. Ing Changrui immediately screamed, Xiao Er, oh my god, my, ha 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 ha. Xiao Jin was fast and accurate. Muzilian's left eye was bruised. Now, Joel's eyes were also bruised. It was a comedic sight. Ing Changrui couldn't help but laugh out loud. Musachu. Chapter 462. This wasn't right. Ing Changrui knew very well that she shouldn't be smiling so obviously. Xiao Er looked at Xiao Jin and covered his eyes in disbelief. He said angrily, are you crazy? Xiao Jin raised his eyebrows. Am I crazy just because I hit you? Why did you hit Muzilian? Xiao Er looked at Ing Changrui in disbelief again. Ing Changrui coughed dryly. Oh my god, Xiao Er, this is ridiculous. This is really ridiculous. She bent down and helped Xiao Er up. Xiao Er asked her, are you laughing? Ing Changrui said, no way. You saw wrongly. Look, your eyes were hit. You're hallucinating. Xiao Er was speechless. Enchanting really didn't care. Xiao Er was a boxer and it was common for him to get injured during training. Now that she saw Xiao Jin hit him, she only felt shocked. However, she really couldn't feel sad about Xiao Er's injury. Musichu looked at Xiao Jin in disbelief. This was the second time he had misjudged Xiao Jin. Looking at her cold, calm and noble appearance, who would dare to believe that she was actually so good at beating people up? Xiao Er didn't even need to talk about Xiao Er. He only saw Xiao Jin move and there was a bruise on Xiao Er's eye. If she was so good at fighting, then in the past. Xiao Jin seemed to have seen through Musichu's doubts. He looked at him and said calmly, after that incident, I found a master to teach me martial arts. Musichu was speechless. When did you find a master? Xiao Er felt a stinging pain in his eyes and some tears flowed out. He covered his eyes and looked at Xiao Jin. He was shocked and indignant at the same time. He said angrily, you took advantage of me when I wasn't paying attention. Despicable. After saying this, Xiao Er rushed over angrily with his fists clenched. He knew that Xiao Jin wasn't an ordinary person and didn't need to show mercy. If an ordinary person was hit by his fist, they would probably be lying on the ground for a long time without being able to get up. However, before Enchanting could stop him, Xiao Er rushed towards Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin reached out with lightning speed and grabbed Xiao Er's arm with one hand. Xiao Er pulled hard, and with a bang, the nearly 2-meter-tall man was thrown into the corridor of the hospital. The sound of her back hitting the floor was painful. Enchanting and Musichu, if it wasn't clear just now, it was clear enough now. Xiao Jin was too fast, but that was not the main point. The main point was that she was strong. Looking at the way he flipped Joel over, no matter who it was, Enchanting swallowed her saliva. She now had a whole new understanding of this beautiful girl's fighting strength. After that, she saw Joel grimacing on the ground but not crying out in pain. Her eyes were still calm. Do you still want to fight? Joel was speechless. These two moves were enough for him to clearly recognize that he was no match for Xiao Jin. It didn't matter if he was prepared or not. The other party's strength and speed were not on the same level as his. But he really couldn't believe that this petite girl in front of him, who was just a petite girl to him, had so much strength in her body. She was too scary. He couldn't swallow his pride and admit that he couldn't do it. He could only hold his waist and glare at Xiao Jin angrily. Because he had never suffered such a loss before. It was obvious that he had beaten up Musichu. Since he dared to be so arrogant in foreign territory, he most likely had a high status in his country. Chapter 463. The scene was suffocating. Enchanting carefully helped Joel up and asked, "Are you okay?" She couldn't help complaining. "I told you not to be impulsive." "Who told you to hit people?" Now he was getting his retribution. Musichu looked at everything in front of him in silence. Then he turned around and said softly, "I'm going to the ward to check on Musilian." Xiao Jin said, "Go ahead." Musichu felt that he needed some time to digest everything. Xiao Jin looked at Joel again and raised his chin slightly. He was arrogant but not overbearing. "Now, go and apologize to Musilian. No matter what, it's wrong for you to hit people for no reason." Joel said, "What if I don't apologize?" Xiao Jin said, "You won't be able to walk out of this hospital today. You might have to stay and be Musilian's patient." Joel was speechless. He was good at Chinese, so he could understand what Xiao Jin meant. Enchanting pushed him and said, Go and apologize. It's your fault." Joel turned his eyes and looked at Enchanting sadly. I was just helping you vent your anger. He was good-looking. When he acted coquettishly and with his tall figure, it was unexpectedly cute. Enchanting was furious. She slapped him on the head and said, I want you to help me vent my anger. Musillian didn't do anything wrong to me. When you heard what I said, did you only remember that he dumped me? It's normal for couples to break up. I don't need you to help me vent my anger. It's wrong for you to hit people. Joel, don't use me as an excuse. You know what kind of person you are in your own country. Joel snorted. Enchanting helped him up. She looked at Xiao Jin and said apologetically, I'm sorry. We'll go in and apologize to Qilian now. We'll pay for the medical expenses. Xiao Jin nodded and pointed at Joel. I'll pay for his medical expenses too. Since you're here, go and find the nurse to apply some medicine. Enchanting was speechless. Joel snorted even louder. Xiao Jin returned to the ward and heard Musillian crying to Musichu. Is there any law? Is there any reason? What did I do wrong? All I did was dump her. I was very ashamed after that. I also apologized to her, but I don't have any feelings for her anymore. You really can't blame me for this. After so many years, she actually found someone to beat me up. Women nowadays are too cruel. Xiao Fei was still peeling an apple for him when she heard what he said. I told you to be nicer to girls when you're dating. Even if you've broken up, can you stop looking for girls so diligently? People who don't know better might think that you've been dating multiple girls and that there's no gap between them. It's only a matter of time before you get beaten up. In the past, there was no one to deal with you. Musillian, Mu Xiangshan chuckled from the side. Sigh, it's all retribution. Musillian, Musichu was about to say something, but when he saw Xiao Jin come in, he didn't say anything. Then, everyone saw Enchanting and Joel behind him. Musillian gasped when he saw Enchanting and Joel. Then, he became furious. What do you mean? Isn't it enough that you beat me up outside? Now you've come to the hospital to look for me. As he spoke, he noticed the bruise on Joel's eye. He immediately burst into laughter. Damn, what's wrong with you? Did you get retribution? Enchanting looked at everyone in the room with different expressions and felt a little embarrassed. Chapter 464. Xiao Fei didn't know them, but when he saw Joel's blonde hair, he immediately knew who they were. Are you the one who hit my son? She pointed at Joel and threw the apple angrily. What do you mean? Isn't it enough that you hit my son? Now you're here at the hospital looking for trouble. Enchanting immediately waved her hand. No. Auntie, we're here to apologize. We're very sorry about hitting Qilian. We're really sorry. She pulled Joel, and Joel came forward and apologized to Musillian unwillingly. I'm sorry. It was my fault for hitting you. Xiao Jin said, you have to be sincere when apologizing. Joel glared at Xiao Jin. Musillian looked at Joel and then at Xiao Jin, and suddenly became vigilant. What do you want? My sister is right. You have to be sincere when apologizing. With your attitude, are you still trying to cause trouble for my sister? Let me tell you, it's fine if you bully me, but if you bully my family, I'll call the police. Everyone, Mu Xiangshan went out with his thermos. He didn't want to see this embarrassing scene. Enchanting smiled even more apologetically. Qilian, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that Joel would cause trouble for you. It's his fault for hitting you. Your sister has already beaten him up. Musillian, Xiao Fei, were they hallucinating? Xiao Jin had beaten up this big guy. They looked at Joel and then at Xiao Jin, as if in a dream. No matter how they looked at it, they felt that the difference between the two figures was too big. Xiao Jin, who looked so weak, could beat up Joel. If she could, would she have been bullied in the past? Muzillion was stunned. Xiao Fei kept blinking. You. What did you say? Who hit him? Enchanting carefully pointed at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin nodded naturally. I was the one who beat him. Qi Lian couldn't beat him, so he didn't apologize. Now that I beat him, he came to apologize. The winner takes all. Everyone, is that how you use the word? Muzillion felt as if he was hallucinating. At this moment, Muzichu replied, that's right. It was Xiao Jin who hit Xiao Air outside. Muzillion, Xiao Fei looked at Xiao Jin in shock. Jin, how could you hit someone? Muzillion, was that the main point? The main point was how was she going to beat him? He did not believe that an idiot like Xiao Air would stand there and let Xiao Jin hit him. Just by looking at the dark circles under his eyes, one could tell that the person who hit him did not hold back. Otherwise, why would the marks be so severe? Xiao Air waved his hand impatiently. I admit it. It was my fault for hitting him. With that, he looked at Xiao Jin and glared at him once more. If not for the fact that he could not beat him, would he have apologized? To think that he would suffer such a huge loss in China. This was a huge humiliation. Once he returned home and trained for a few more years, he did not believe that he could not take revenge. Enchanting tugged at him. If you want to apologize, do it properly. It was only then that Xiao Air lowered his voice unwillingly. I'm sorry. It was my fault for hitting him. I apologize to you. Muzillion reacted and blinked his eyes. He wanted to reject the apology, but when he caught sight of Enchanting's embarrassed gaze, his eyes flickered. Eventually, he harumphed coldly. Forget it. He did not really hit him hard. It seemed like he was standing up for Enchanting. Back then, he did not know that Enchanting was being bullied because of his own reasons. This was his way of making it up to her. Chapter 465. Enchanting heaved a sigh of relief and thanked him sincerely. Thank you so much, Qi Lian. She thought about it and sighed again. Actually, Joel was wrong. I was really upset when we broke up. It was none of your business that I was bullied. I know you didn't know either, so there's no need to push the blame to you. I've thought things through after I left the country. Thanks to you, I focused on my studies and have a good future now. This was really an accident. Joel was my classmate, so I apologize to you again for his recklessness. Her words were so sincere that it was hard to reprimand her. Xiao Fei knew from Muzillion's words that this girl should be the school belle that Muzillion had mentioned, and he was her first love. Xiao Fei thought about how she had been bullied because of Muzillion. Although it had nothing to do with his son, it was still partly because of him. She couldn't say anything to reprimand him. Now that even Joel had been beaten up, that was that. Let's just forget about it. Xiao Fei waved his hand. It's none of your business. Muzillion added, I said forget about it, so forget about it. Take it as compensation for the past. He pursed his lips. I'm still sorry. Enchanting smiled confidently and cheerfully. You don't have to apologize. I've already said that you didn't do anything wrong to me. It's normal to break up if you don't like me when you're in a relationship. At least you didn't do anything unforgivable to me, and you didn't cheat on my feelings. There's no need to apologize. Although she said this, one could vaguely hear the jealousy in her tone. This jealousy was because of the end of the past. After all, Musilian was her first love. How could she forget it so easily? Musilian was destined to be someone who wasn't on the same line as her. She just couldn't forget this period of time. Joel saw that something was wrong with her. He clenched his fists and left with Enchanting after saying these words. Xiao Jin reminded him faintly. I suggest you apply some medicinal wine. It'll look worse if it gets swollen. Joel, just you wait. There was a saying in China, revenge is a dish best served cold. After they left, Xiao Fei sighed. Look at what's going on. As she spoke, she slapped Musilian's head. I told you not to get involved in romantic affairs. Look at you. Now you're suffering from retribution. What if this happens more often in the future? How many girls have you ruined over the years? Musilian clutched his head in pain. Dating is all consensual. If they're not willing, I can't force them. Why do you have to push the responsibility to me alone? I'm not like those bastards from the Lan family. If not, look at Feng Bingi from the Feng family. That's called inhumane, okay? Compared to them, I'm like a fresh flower. Xiao Fei was even angrier. You have the nerve to compare yourself to some animals. Why can't you learn from your brothers and put your heart in some important places? Do you really think that just because we have big brother and second brother in our family, you can just eat and wait for death? Musilian, that was what he thought. He turned his gaze to Xiao Jin and felt a little incredulous. Xiao Jin, how did you hit him? When did you become so skilled? Damn it. When he was hit, he resisted for a few times and then fell on the street. The other party was a martial arts practitioner. Obviously, they weren't on the same level. Xiao Jin could even hit him. Wasn't she too scary? Chapter 466. Xiao Jin used the excuse he had used to fool Musichu. After that incident, I found a master to teach me martial arts to strengthen my body. Musilian was a little suspicious. Really? But you've only been practicing for a short period of time, while Joel has obviously been practicing for a long time. Can you beat him? Xiao Jin said, my master is a hermit master. Musilian burst out laughing. Don't tease your brother. What hermit master is there now? Xiao Jin said, if you don't believe me, we can have a competition when you're better. Musilian, he couldn't even beat Joel. If he were to fight Xiao Jin, he couldn't laugh anymore. Musichu also stared at him. Mom is right. You're in this state now. You still have 2 years. Why don't you join the army and train yourself? Musilian's eyes widened. Join the army? Are you crazy? Xiao Fei thought for a moment and immediately clapped his hands. That's true. Qilian, why don't you join the army? Musilian. No, I don't want to. He buried himself back under the blanket, his whole body and mind resisting. When Musichu brought up this matter, Xiao Fei's enthusiasm instantly ignited. He even called Mu Jinming to discuss it. Then, big brother Mu Qizhi also came. Mu Qizhi was busy every day, but he still had to take time out to deal with this matter. When he came, of course, he criticized and despised Musilian, but in the end, he comforted him. After learning that Xiao Jin had helped Musilian vent his anger, Mu Qizhi was also in disbelief. He was going to deal with this matter. Of course, he was going to call the police and go through legal procedures, but when he heard that Xiao Jin had also hit someone, forget it. He had a headache because of this family. He called Xiao Jin to the door. He didn't ask much about the incident but looked at her seriously. Xiao Jin, you're 20 years old this year. You're in your 2nd year and will be in your 3rd year soon. Don't you have any plans for your future? Xiao Jin answered honestly, no. Muchiji. You're not young anymore. Are you interested in helping me? The Mu family is so big, and you are also a member of the family. You should learn as much as you can about the family as possible. Xiao Jin blinked. The Mu family treated her with sincerity. Usually, such a family business would be guarded against even their relatives. She was just an adopted daughter, but Muchiji wanted her to start learning now. It was obvious that he wanted to hand over some of the things to her in the future. She was grateful to Muchiji, but she was really not interested. No, Chiji. Jinming is still young now, and old master is also here. You and Chi Chu are enough. I'm really not interested in these things. I just want to live a normal life like this. Muchiji disagreed and condemned her. How can you be as useless as Qi Lian? Xiao Jin couldn't help but smile. Muchiji looked at her deeply and sighed. Forget it. Chapter 467. However, he couldn't dissuade his family. After Mu Jinming came at night, his family discussed and decided to send him to the army. 2 years was enough to train him. He wouldn't fall behind in his studies. When he came back from the army, he would have plenty of time to study. He wasn't stupid, but he wasn't used on the right path. Now, he was sent to train himself. Mu Jinming went to contact some connections and send his son to the army. It was a piece of cake. The time was set for next month. Mu Qilian wished that he could find a rope and hang himself that night after hearing this bad news. Xiao Jin also agreed with him joining the army. She even accompanied him for a while that night. Qilian, don't worry. I saw your marriage line. Your true love might be in the army. When you come back, you'll be a new person. Muzilian's face darkened. The army is full of men. You're saying my true love is in there? Xiao Jin. If you think so, I can't help it. Muzilian broke down. Get out. Xiao Jin left. Muzilian only needed to stay in the hospital for 1 night. In fact, he could be discharged. However, the impact of joining the army was too great. He was mentally and physically exhausted. He wanted to stay in the hospital to think about life for 1 night. Xiao Jin and Muzichu stayed to accompany him. It was late at night. She was a little hungry, so she went out to buy some things and brought some for Muzichu. There was a bright moon tonight, illuminating the entire imperial capital with its cold white light. The city was still so lively. The streets of Dama were full of people. It was bustling. This was something that couldn't be seen in previous eras. Different eras had different civilizations. Xiao Jin couldn't explain it in the past. Now, she felt that she had gradually fallen in love with this era. Because here, she could experience some things that she had never experienced before. As she thought of this, the smile on her face slowly disappeared. The noise on the streets became lower and lower. She just turned a corner and found herself stepping into another world. Silence. It was extremely quiet. On the empty street, there were only cars parked there. The people talking on the street had disappeared, as if there had never been any traces of people. A gentle breeze blew over, causing the corners of her clothes to flutter. There was a crossroad in front of them. There were no cars on the busy street. After a long while, she slowly smiled. Under the moonlight, she looked like a goddess from the Moon Palace. You finally can't hold it in anymore. I was wondering how long you could hold it in. Fog gradually appeared in front of his eyes. What was originally clearly visible was gradually covered by the fog. Within the fog, something was faintly appearing and disappearing. Under such an atmosphere, it gave people a kind of inexplicable feeling of terror. It was frightening and horrifying. It was as if something was about to surge out of the fog. Roar! There really was something there. Xiao Jin blinked and saw an indescribable monster running out of the fog. It had 8 legs, a wolf's body, and a broken human face on its head. Only the mouth of the human face was complete, but it was wide open, revealing rows of bloody teeth. It looked extremely terrifying. When it ran, its body was slanted. The fog around it kept surging. It seemed that there was more than one monster. They were all in the fog, facing Xiao Jin, waiting for an opportunity to move. Chapter 468. It's too low level. She sighed softly. However, in an instant, the world that was originally dark apart from the fog was suddenly shrouded in threads of red light. Like a woven rope net, they fell from the sky and penetrated the fog. A red rope passed through the monster's body. The monster was vaporized without even screaming. The red silk threads weaved into a huge net, covering Xiao Jin in it. She waved her hand slightly, and a huge red butterfly appeared in the sky. It was so huge that it seemed to cover the entire city. Just a glance was enough to make people terrified. It flapped its wings gently, and the fog rolled away. Those monsters also gradually disappeared with the disappearance of the fog. It stood in the sky, and the city did not return to its original state. Xiao Jin just gently waved her hand, and a figure was forcibly brought over from behind a billboard. Because of the huge force, the moment he was summoned, he had no choice but to kneel in front of Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin looked at him with a faint smile. Grand Ancestor, what a coincidence. The Grand Ancestor's face was full of horror at this time. He couldn't even speak at this moment. He saw the huge butterfly in the sky, oppressing the top of his head. Just looking up was suffocating. There was also that miraculous technique. He really didn't know how Xiao Jin had broken his array formation. Obviously, the array had been broken, but now everything was still not restored to its original state, indicating that Xiao Jin took over his array. Where did she get such powerful strength? His lips were pale, and his whole body was trembling. He was no longer as calm as when they first met. He realized that he might have provoked an unexplainable terrifying existence. He had never seen such an array master. If you endure for a while, maybe someone will come forward. Why? She sighed slightly. The Feng family is about to be finished. Why don't you cherish this last time? The Grand Ancestor's pupils shrank. The Feng family's matter. She really did the Feng family's matter. He regretted it. If Feng Fei he provoked such an existence, he wouldn't save Feng Fei he at all. You think I did it? Xiao Jin glanced at him. Actually, I don't need to do anything. If Feng Fei he doesn't die, your Feng family will naturally be finished. If you save her, won't you bear the consequences? What your Feng family is doing is just adding fuel to the fire. The Grand Ancestor's eyes widened. He had only ever heard of karma. However, he also knew that some things would backfire if he didn't control them well. However, karma was something that they could not come into contact with for the time being. That person had once said that the more ordinary an existence was, the less likely it was for them to come into contact with karma. Karma was something used to restrain the most powerful existences in the world, but at the same time, it was also a weapon that these powerful existences could use. Xiao Jin controlled karma. In the past 100 years of the Grand Ancestor's life, he had never regretted it as much as now. What was even more regretful was that he had actually attacked her. He had no choice but to make a move against Xiao Jin. He thought that if Xiao Jin was an array formation master, Xiao Jin would be on par with him. After all, Xiao Jin was too young. However, He didn't know that some people in this world couldn't be measured by the surface at all. He knew that he was finished. He felt that Xiao Jin could easily kill him with just a move of her fingers. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.